Now, in today's production-ready complex app, we are going to be building a fully functional Tinder-style dating meetup app. Okay, so we're gonna have the whole Tinder component in there, that matching component, the swiping component. We are also going to have a fully functioning chat with matches so that you can chat with your matches. And we're also going to have a maps component so that you can see your matches on the map to see how far or how close they are away from where you are. And so by the end of the video, you will know exactly how to build a fully functioning production-ready complex app that you can use as is, or you can further refine and enhance it to add more features and functionality. Now, before we get started, as always, if you're a member of our amazing Patreon community, you'll be able to view and or clone this app. And that means you will have this app at your disposal. You will be able to do anything that you want with this app. You can analyze the code. You can make enhancements. You can integrate the code into another app that you're building, or you can simply use this app as is. And so if you want to become a member and get access to this app, as well as get access to all the other apps that I publish on this channel, check out the first link in the description below the video. All right, so the app that we're going to be building is going to be kind of a dating meetup app with chat and maps functionality, okay? And so I've built one of these apps before, but there were a lot of limitations with the apps, with the similar apps that I've built before. A lot of people, had some issues about, doing this, doing that. And so this time I'm going to build a universal app that's going to work. And plus we're going to include some really cool Supabase functionality here as well that I think a lot of you are really going to like. Okay, so first I want to talk about the screens here. Okay, so we have the main screen, and this is kind of going to be like a Tinder style swiping situation, right? You'll be able to swipe left, swipe right. The user will need to log in, right? So the user will need to log in first. They will need to have an account. They'll be able to see existing matches, right? These are going to be a list of profiles. They'll be able to chat with those matches, and they'll be able to view these matches on the map. Okay, so it's a little bit of an extra feature. So that way they can see where these matches are, in relation to them. Okay, so this is going to be a cool feature. All right, so moving right along, let's talk about our Supabase schema here. Okay, so we're going to be using authentication, which means that we're going to be using this the built-in users table, but we're also going to create some additional auxiliary tables. Okay, the first one is the profiles table, which is going to contain the user's profile information. This is going to be one-to-one to users. So that means for every user, there's going to be exactly one profile record. And we're also going to create another table called preferences, which is kind of like profiles, except it's going to contain the individual user's preferences. So what kind of people they're looking for, maybe a distance that they prefer within a certain radius, maybe a gender they prefer, etc., right? So there's going to be two additional tables here, each one having a one-to-one relationship with this users table. Next is where things get interesting, because we're going to be doing something different this time. Okay, so we're going to have the swipes functionality, right? So swipes is going to be a table. So every time I swipe somebody or somebody swipes somebody, there's going to be a record created. And so typically it's going to be the person that swiped and the person that was swiped, right? So the swiper and the swipee. Next, we have this matches table, and a record is going to be created here only if both users swiped on each other. So if I swipe somebody, that's not enough. They need to swipe on me as well. Okay, so if we both swipe together, on each other, if you will, there's going to be a record created here. Okay, and so how's this going to work? Well, we're going to have a Supabase function that will get triggered, essentially, that will run after each swipe, so that it can check, okay, so I swipe on this person, did this swipe back? If they did not swipe, then there is no record created here. Okay, whereas if I swipe and there's already a swipe on me, then there's going to be a record created here. Okay, so both swipe, this thing runs and it adds the record. So this thing is going to run after every swipe. Okay, now before in some of the other apps, This was done on the front end, right? But it's a lot better to do it on the back end because we don't have to worry about it on the front end, right? So it's like we're getting free functionality, we're getting free logic. And last but not least, we have the messages table here that will store the individual messages because the chats are going to be the matches, right? So you'll be able to click on the user here and just chat with them, right? So if you remove the match, you won't be able to chat with them. Okay, and we also are going to have another function that will get us the new matches, right? Because over here, right up here, as we're swiping, we need to get new matches, right? So if I swipe somebody right, that's it. I swiped on that person. I should not see them anymore because I've seen them already, right? And so we're going to have another function that will get us new users. So people that we haven't seen before, people that we haven't swiped before. And this is going to be accessible via an API call. And you may be wondering, well, why do we need that function? Can't we do that in the front end via filters? And the answer is no, we cannot do that because this is beyond the capability of what we can do with filters in FlutterFlow. So this needs to be another function, and we'll be able to access this function via an API call, and we'll be able to send parameters, etc., etc. So it's going to be really, really nicely done. All right. So that is our Supabase schema here, and let's go ahead and start building it out. All right, so the first thing that we need to do is we need to create our Supabase schema, okay? And so here I am in my Supabase dashboard, and I'm gonna go ahead and create a brand new project just for this app that we're building. So I'm gonna click on new project, and the project name, I'm just gonna say Meetup, because kind of a Meetup dating app. Just use a password right here, and I'm gonna say create new project. All right, so it's creating our project right now. All right, so I finished creating the new project, and now we need to create our table. So I'm gonna jump into table editor, and we're gonna start creating our tables. Now I went ahead and prepared a document here with the fields, the prospective fields for each of the tables. So we already have the users table, but that is just there for reference. We need to create a profiles and a preference table. And so what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go ahead and create a profiles table, okay? So I'm gonna come in here, new table, I'm gonna do profiles. And here I'm only gonna create a couple of fields. First, we need to do a foreign key to our authentication table, right? So I'm going to click here, go over here, auth, users, and this is going to be ID in that table. And right here, so we have the foreign key. And in terms of the fields, I'm going to say, I'm just going to do gender and profile picture, okay, just to get started, right? So this is going to be the gender, and I'm going to just make it text, and the profile picture, and I'm going to make it text, okay? And we're going to add more fields later on. So I'm going to say save. All right. So this table is now created. Next, I'm going to do the preference table, right? So I'm only going to have maybe the age range and interested in gender, okay? So I'm going to say new table, preferences. We're going to do our foreign key. I'm going to come over here, users, and we're going to link back to this ID right here. That's the first thing we need to do. Next, we have... so interested in gender, I'm going to copy this. I'm going to put that there, and age range. Okay, so this is going to be text. And then age range, we're going to do, age and age max. Okay, we're going to do here. You can do something like int2 to represent this because it's only like a 2-digit number. So we can just use int2 here. Okay, but typically I use numeric for general purpose number storing. Okay. So that is all we have here. This is good enough. I'm going to hit save. The next table I want to do is the swipes table. Okay, so we're going to have the swiper ID, the swipee, right? Whether they swiped right on that person, that's going to be a Boolean. So if they swipe right, it's going to be true. If they swipe left, meaning that they don't want to connect with that person, it's going to be false. And so we're going to come in here, new table swipes. And here I'm going to say swiper ID. This is the person who is swiping. And the ID is going to be linked to the users table, okay? Because it's going to be the authenticated user. And so we need to link it here, auth, and we need to make sure it's ID here. And same thing for the swipee, which is the other person, right? Swipee ID is going to be the real ID. Okay, right here, ID, hit save, and what do we need? Liked, which is Boolean, whether they liked it, and we're gonna set this to, where's our Boolean? Right here, bool, and that's it. Right, swiped at, this is created at, we have that, okay? I'm gonna go ahead and save that. And next I want to do matches. So here we just have the record ID, the user one, user two, and that's it. So this is going to be user one, and this is also going to be a foreign key. Okay, and user two ID. All right, and that's it. Right, all of this is going to be stored here. This is the ID, this is created at. All right, we're done here, and now we just need to create the messages table. So let's go ahead and do that. Messages, and messages has the match ID, the sender ID, message, and that. Okay, so these are our reference columns, and so this is going to be match ID. So you can think of it like the chat ID. All right, it's the same thing. In fact, why don't I just call it chat ID? That's going to be better. And this is going to be just an ID. And so this is going to be a foreign key to matches right here, this ID here. And now we just need to have the actual message, right? So right here we have sender ID message, which is perfect, right? So this is the sender ID, and that's going to be a foreign key to the actual sender. All right, and the message. I'm gonna go ahead and save that. All right, so we have this. We have a couple of other things as well that we need to cover. We're gonna do that later. But right now, the next thing that I want to do is I want to create our RLS policies, okay? Because as it is right now, because we have RLS enabled, as you can see, RLS is enabled for this table, but no policies are set. Select queries will return an empty array. Okay, so that means these tables are not accessible to anybody right now. Okay, so we're gonna click here, and we're going to create a bunch of policies. So I'm just going to do a very permissive policy. All, just going to say true, and I'm going to say this true right here. And I'm going to do the same for the other tables, okay? Create policy, and I'm going to do for messages, this is true, and this is true as well. Okay, that is what we have. We remove that filter. We have these two policies. I'm going to create more policies and two more policies, and last one for swipes, so that we can create records there and read data, which is very important. True. Okay, so now we have all the policies here, and that means they're now accessible. Okay, there's a couple of things that we need to do. We need to create a couple of functions. Okay, so as we talked about, we need to have this function that runs after each swipe. So after a record is created here, we need to run this function here. Okay, so I went ahead and I used ChatGPT to generate a function for me. And so here's my function, and here's the trigger for the function. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and copy this, and I'm going to jump in here to our SQL editor, and I'm going to paste it. Now I want to make sure that this is correct, and it looks good. So it's called handle match, and what it does is it looks at the new record, and it looks at some of the data, and it has appropriate logic, right? So once it's triggered, right, that says here, if new liked is true, meaning that this new person, this new match, this new attempt to match is true, then we need to see the other matches and find this other match. Okay, so we're trying to get this, we're trying to locate the opposite swipe. If we find it, right, the select one just means if it exists or not. We don't really care about the actual data. We are just checking to make sure that there is a previous swipe, the opposite swipe. If that is true, meaning if it exists, then we want to insert a new matches record, right? Which this data, right? New swipe ID and new swipe ID. So we're going to execute this, success, no rows return, and then we're going to create this trigger so that this function is actually triggered. Because if it's not triggered, what good is the function, right? So we're going to paste that here, and it says here, create trigger after swipe. This is the name of the trigger that will get triggered after insert on table swipes for each row, and then it needs to execute this function handle match. We're going to do that. So now, anytime a new swipe is created, right? Anytime a new insert is on swipes table, it's going to run that function and automatically insert a new match record if needed. Okay, so that is done. And so now we can actually test it out. So if I go back here, and let's say I go into swipes and I create a new swipe. Well, For me to create a new swipe, I need to have some users. So I'm going to come back to authentication and I'm going to go ahead and create a bunch of users. And let's say james@james.com, give it a sample password. Okay. And let's go ahead and create a couple of more users because we're going to be using them in the app anyway. We're going to be logging in as them and testing them. So I'm going to create three male users and three female users. We have Rob. So I'm going to create maybe tim@tim.com. Okay. And let's go ahead and create three female users. Nika@nika.com and two more. Michelle.com and one more. All right. So now we have that. We also need to create the records in profiles and preferences. Okay, we're gonna do that in a second. But first, I wanna test out the swipes if it's actually working. So let's say I create a new swipe, and let's say it's me swiping on Rebecca. So I'm gonna select myself. I'm gonna select James, and the swipee is gonna be Rebecca. Okay, and let's say I liked it. Right. So let's say I swipe right on Rebecca, and so now we have a record. So if I go into matches, there's nothing here. Right, because that function automatically is triggered and it tries to see if there's an opposite swipe, but there isn't because there's only one swipe, and so it doesn't do anything. It doesn't insert a record here. But let's say I create another swipe, and this time it's Rebecca swiping on me. So I say Rebecca, and she swipes on me, and she says true, of course, right? Which means that now we should have a match. Okay, so now we should have a match. We go into matches. And guess what? We have a match there. Okay, so this logic is something that I did not do previously. Okay, we did that in the app, but it's a lot better to do it here because now we don't have to worry about it, right? We could forget about all this logic. We just see the matches, automatically being created in this table. And this is amazing, and this is what you should be using Supabase for, right? I know a lot of people don't use it. I've been guilty of this myself. I'm still, not really using it. But this is the right approach. Okay, anything related to kind of, database, comparing database records, triggering when a certain action takes place, you want that logic to be in Supabase. Okay, so this logic works. Now let's go ahead and create a couple of profiles for each of these users. Maybe not for each of them, maybe just for a couple. So I'll do for myself, male profile picture. Let's go ahead and find a profile picture. All right, so here I am on generatedphotos.com. And so just for testing, what we can do is we can simply copy this person here. Obviously, in production, you want to save it in your local kind of storage, right? In your Supabase or somewhere else. And so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to copy this image just for testing. Okay, and I'm going to paste it in here. Okay, so this is my image here. Now we have a profile here, and I'm going to create one for a female. And so let's say Rebecca, female, and let's go ahead and find, we're going to copy this one. And just to repeat myself, you do not want to be doing this in production. This is just for quick testing. You want to download the images and save them in a place that you control, because we don't know how long this is going to be available. This is just for quick testing. So I'm going to save this, and now we have two profiles. I'm going to go into preferences, and I'm going to do the same for preferences. I'm going to come over here. I'm going to do James, and let's say female, interest in female, age minimum, I don't know, let's say I put 30, and let's say I put 40. Okay, all right, and I'm going to do the same for Rebecca. Okay, and she's interested in males, let's say from 20 to 35 or something like this. All right, so now we have some records in each of these tables. We are ready to start building the app. And so here I am inside of my FlutterFlow dashboards. You can see I have lots and lots of apps. You may have less, possibly, or maybe you have as many as I do. But regardless, we're going to create a new app right here, and we're going to call it Meetup app. Okay, and we're going to say blank app here, and we're not going to be using Firebase because we're going to be using Supabase. And the first thing that we need to do is we need to configure Supabase. So I'm going to find Supabase here. I'm going to go ahead and enable it. We need API URL and anon key. So I'm going to jump back into my project right here, project settings, API, and we have the URL right here. Come back here, paste the URL, come back here and copy the key. Okay, paste the anon key right here. Click on get schema, and as you can see, we have access to these tables. Okay, so this is good. This means that we can continue. Next, we want to enable Supabase authentication. So if we type auth, click on authentication, enable authentication, choose Supabase, and we need the initial page and the logged in page. Okay, so the logged in page is the home page. but we need the initial page. Come back here. Let's go ahead and create this login page. And you can simply click here and you have lots of cool templates that you can choose from. Let's go ahead and use this template right here. I'm just going to say login. All right. And so that is what we have. I'm going to delete these because we're just going to be using email login just to get started. And so let's take a look. Okay. So yeah, we need the entry page, and this is going to be the page that I just created. And so now we have the login page, we have the home page here. I'm just going to rename it to home. All right, so at this point, our app is configured with Supabase for database as well as authentication. All right, so now we're back in FlutterFlow and it's time to build out the app. So on this home page, we are going to have the basic flow, and this is going to be the Tinder style flow where the user will be able to swipe left or swipe right on the prospective matches, right? So I'm just going to rename this page. And the next thing that we need to do is we need to display the swiping widget. Now, fortunately, FlutterFlow provides it for us, right? So we have the swipeable stack that we can use. Okay, so we can simply select that, and that's right there. Now, the swipeable stack, the way it works is that you need to configure it, right? So you need to configure it just like a list widget, right? So you can come over here, you can do a backend query, or you can do generating children from a variable, okay? And so the idea here is that we do not want to display everybody, right? It would have been very easy to display everybody. We can just have a query and just display everybody. What we need to do here is we need to display the people that we have not seen yet, and also have a filter, right? Maybe of a certain age, or maybe of a certain gender. All right, so we are kind of picky here, right? And so if let's say we want to do like a backend query, right? So we select this widget here. Let's say I select the swipeable stack. I come over here and I add a query, and let's say I want to do a Supabase query, and let's say I want to select profiles, right? And list of rows, and I want to do a filter. Well, I can do gender, right? I can say, well, let's say I am, I'm looking for females, right? So I can get my gender. I can just say equal to, and here I can just do some other query and get my gender. That is easy, is getting the profiles that we haven't seen yet. All right, because if you recall, we have this table here, right? So if you go back to our tables, we have a table called swipes, we have matches, we have all of these. But what we're looking for is we're looking for people that we haven't swiped on. It doesn't really matter whether we swiped yes or no. Once we've swiped on a profile, we typically do not want to see them again, right? Even if, it doesn't really matter. So if we swiped yes, then it's up to them, right? There's no need for us to see them again. And if we swipe no, well, we're just not interested. So what's the point of seeing them again? And so in this situation, what we need to do is we need to have some really, rather complex logic, if you will. Whereas this is very simple, but we need another filter that says something like, well, I want this user ID, or, like whatever. Yeah, user ID, or even an ID from the table, where, and let's say is. And if I go into is, this is not what I want in, right? So now we need to provide a list. And yeah, even if you can do it, which is a mess, because now you need to pull the entire list of users that we haven't seen yet, right? Which is a lot of users. And once you do it here, these users, that list of IDs is going to be stored in memory, right? Because it needs to be here. And you don't want that, right? Because you could have potentially tens and, thousands, tens of thousands, even millions of users, right? And so what I'm trying to get at is this filter is just not going to work for us. This simple filter will, maybe an age range filter is also going to work. We can say whatever age is greater than and less than, right? We can do that. But we can't do this like this main filter. Okay, and so if we can't do it here, our only option is to do it as an API call. Okay, we can do it as an API call that does some kind of a query. An even better way to do it would be to create a function in Supabase that will just do all the filtering for us, right? So a Supabase function, not to be confused with a cloud function, right? This is not the same as a cloud function. In fact, we have a couple of functions already, right? So if you come over here, we have a function called handle match, which essentially checks if there is another match, a kind of an opposite match, once one match is completed, whether there is an opposite match. So we have a function here. So what we can do is create another function where we can pass the user ID, our user ID, and maybe a preferred gender and some other parameters that will spit out a list of all the users that we haven't seen yet, right? This is what Supabase and databases, relational databases excel at. Okay, and so what we need to do is create that function. Okay, so we're going to go into SQL editor and we're going to create this function. Now I already created this function. I used ChatGPT to do it. And so here's the function that I created. It's called get potential matches. I just used ChatGPT to do it. And I'll just kind of walk you guys through it so that you at least understand what's happening. So this first line is useful if you are modifying the function, because anytime you modify the function, it's a lot easier to just drop this function and just recreate it. Okay, so this thing says create or replace function, and that works most of the time. But in some situations, if you're doing like a major change, you can't do this. So you need to drop the function and recreate it. And so this is fairly common, especially with views, right? I mean, you would probably don't want to do it with a table because you're going to be deleting data, but with functions, with views, anything that doesn't directly impact the data itself. This is fairly common. I use this with views and I use it here as well. So then the next line here says create or replace function, get potential matches. So we're creating this function that has two parameters, the user ID, and this is going to be our user ID, right? Because we want to list the users that we haven't seen yet. So this is going to be the authenticated user. And here's a gender, and this is a gender that the preferred gender. Okay, and the next thing we're doing is we're returning a table, right? We're essentially returning a table that we're creating on the fly, and these are the fields that we're returning. Okay, and here is where the actual function is. Okay, so it says here begin returns a query, and all it's doing is returning a query, right? So when you think about Supabase functions, all it is a way to create kind of a dynamic view. Right? Because when you create a view, it's not dynamic. You create it once and that's it. But with a function, we are creating a dynamic view because we can always, and we're going to be passing these parameters, and this view takes into account these parameters. And the view is static. Once you create it, there's no parameters. It's not looking into anything. It's not comparing variables or anything like that. It's just a window to a table or maybe to a couple of tables if you have like a join in there. Whereas a function is dynamic. We have parameters, so we can, look at these parameters and do and pass them into this query. Okay. And so what do we want to return? What do we want this function to return? Well, what I wanted to return is this potential match ID. These are the IDs of our matches, the people that we want to show. And I want to return maybe the gender. And maybe later we'll return more things, but that's all I care about for now. Okay. So I'm going to, in fact, is also a profile picture can be useful as well. Okay, so potential match ID, gender, and the profile picture. Now the gender is going to be the same gender that we're filtering by. Okay, and so here we need to make sure that this list matches what we have here. Okay, and so potential match ID is here. Username is not there, so we need to remove bio. Gender is there. We're going to leave gender. We need to remove this. All of this except profile picture because it's there. This needs to match because that is what we're selecting here. So we have three fields. Next, we are pulling these fields from profiles, and now we have our logic. We're saying PID is not argument, right? So we're trying to find the users that we haven't seen before, right? So we're excluding ourselves, right? Because we don't want to display ourselves. That's the first thing. And then we're filtering by gender. We're saying, well, we only care about the rest of the users where the gender is the gender we care about. This is the gender that we prefer. And then not in, right? Not in where the swiper is the user, right? So we've never swiped on this person. That is what we care about. So if we swiped, this is going to be true, and we're looking for not in. Okay, so we even have something called a subquery because we are trying to look up in another table, and we're saying we don't want any of these users that we have already swiped on, right? This is going to give us a list of users that we have swiped on before. So if you've swiped on 10 users, this is going to return 10 records, and we're saying this ID is not in these, it's not here. Okay. So let's go ahead and execute this right here. And now it's a success, no rows returned. And so now we can potentially run this function and get potential matches. Okay. And now we can do this select from, just like with the view, just like with the table, but we can pass parameters. Okay. And so let's say I put in my user ID. Let me go ahead and find my user ID. So I'm going to go into my table editor, profiles, and I'm going to find my user ID. So this is me. Let me double check if that's me. That should be me, james@james.com. And so this is my user ID. I'm going to copy this. I'm going to go back here and I'm going to paste it in here. Now for the gender, I'm just going to put F because that's how we are storing, and I'm going to execute this. And once we execute it, we are getting an error because it says operator does not exist, this. So let's see if we can debug it with Supabase AI over here, okay? And so now it's offering us a cast, okay? So I'm going to accept this change and I'm going to execute it. Okay, we're still getting an error, so we need to look a little bit deeper. Maybe we don't need this cast, and so we need to take a look and see what's happening here. So we're passing this right here. This is the UUID. This is fine. Let's take a look at our function over here. So this is the UUID right here. We have UID. So I believe this is not going to be correct. Okay, because there's this comparison is not correct, I believe. And I'm going to show you why it's not correct. Because this thing here, this is UUID, which is what we were passing. But this ID is a big int, right? So if we go to this table here, just to show you profiles, this ID is just int 8, which is big int. It's like a big integer because int 8. You can have int 2, int 4, int 8 is considered a big. So we're basically comparing this to something like this, which is not correct. And so to fix that, we need to be using another field. We need user ID, right? So we need to replace this. And this is a mistake. This is not, this wouldn't even have worked because it's not correct. This all needs to be user ID. So we're going to execute this again, rebuild this function, go back here to this. And now if you run it, we get success, no rows returned. So it's telling us there is no more matches. Okay. And why is that? Well, it's actually very simple. If you go back to our database and you go into profiles, which is the table that we're working with, we can see that we only have 2 people. One female and one male. And remember, we already matched on this. We already swiped on this female. In fact, we matched with her. And so that is why if we take a look in the swipes table, we have it, right? We already matched on her, right? So as you can see, swiper ID, this is mine. I already swiped on her. And so it looks at it and it gets it and it says, we don't want these people, right? So that is why, you know, in this profiles, it's not displaying it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create another user, a new user that we haven't or swiped with, that we haven't swiped with yet. And so I'm going to go in here and I'm going to create a new profile. Okay. I'm going to create another female. So we have 3 females that we can choose. And I think that one is 00, which is this one. So we're not going to use Rebecca. I think we can use Michelle. Michelle wants male. And let's go ahead and hit save. No, it should be, it's not the preference, it's actually what her gender is, right? So female right here. And so now if we execute this, we should list that record because we haven't swiped on that profile yet. So if I execute this, we get this profile here. Okay, so as you can see, this function works. And it's fast, it's capable, it gives us what we want, and we can easily access it using an API call, right? So if you head over here to API docs and you click on where it says store procedures, you select this, you can see that we can call this function from an API, which is perfect because now we can call it from our app. Okay, and so now what we can do is we can copy this URL right here. In fact, what we can do to make it easier, use a key. So we can copy that right here, go back to our app, create an API call, and I can say get, paste this here. Is this a get or a post? It's a post. Okay, no problem. I'm going to paste this right here. These are our arguments. Okay, we're going to make it post. I'm going to save it. Body is JSON. Paste it in here. And now we need to create arguments for this, right? So I'm just going to save it because it doesn't save automatically. I'm going to create 2 variables. The first is the user ID, and this is going to be the authenticated user in most situations, string. And then we also need the gender, right? The gender filter. We're going to put that right here. And now we can test it out. Okay, so here I'm going to remove this. I'm going to put gender filter right here. Okay, and user ID, I'm going to I'm going to put this right here. Okay. And so now we can even test it out. But before we do that, we need to fill out the rest of the fields. So we need to pass in the API key right here. This key right here, that's the API key. I'm going to add a header. API key, I think, and pass the second header, which is the authorization bearer. Okay, just like how we have it here. Just paste, copy that. Let me double check. API key is all lowercase. We need this. Very important. Very important. You have application JSON, and now we can hit save. Okay, and now it should hopefully work, right? So now we can come into here, response and test, and let's say my user ID is what? Let's go ahead and look it up. Go into profiles, and this is me. Paste it in there, and I want female. Okay, so I should have one result if everything goes as planned. Test it, and guess what we have? We have potential match. This is the match. This is a match that we haven't seen yet because we haven't swiped yes or no on this match. Okay, we don't have a profile picture. That match does not have a profile picture. And that is absolutely fine. And so now what we can do is we can save these as a JSON path. You can create a data type if you want, but this is a very, very simple, we just care about 2 fields and also profile. So like a couple of fields. So I don't really think it's necessary to create a custom data type. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to say match ID, and I'm going to say gender, match gender, something like this. Okay. And now we can hit save. And so now we can come over here and we can do a query, Supabase query. In fact, not Supabase, API call, get prospective matches. And I'm going to say user ID, and I'm going to paste it, right? This is going to be the authenticated user. In fact, let's go ahead and put authenticated user, and I'm going to set another variable and gender filter. And this is going to be pulled up from the preferences table. But right now I'm just going to put female. Okay. I'm going to say confirm, and that's it. So now we have our list, and now I can come back over here and I can say, well, I'm going to get the response, and I'm just going to say no further changes. And this is the response right here. So response here, we can, do what we need to do. And you come over here and you open this up. You have lots of things that you can do. So you can swipe it left, you can swipe it right. You can do this, you can do that. And so we'll need to put some buttons there as well, which we're going to do in just a second. Right now, what we can do is we can test it out, right? We can test it out. And in fact, let's go ahead and display the image so that it's there to make sure that we are, we're kind of displaying everything. So let's go ahead and put this image right here. We get this response over here. And are we capturing the image? No, we're not capturing the image, because there's no image in this case, right? Profile picture is null. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to add a profile picture, and I'm going to say match profile. And this is null right now, as you can see, but it's not going to be null once it does have a profile picture. And so I'm going to go in here, and I'm going to go right here, and I'm going to put in a picture. Let's go ahead and find, how about this person right here? Okay, copy image address, put it right here, paste that in there. Okay, so now we have a profile picture. And so now if we execute it, we get a profile picture. So this displays here, and it's going to be there. So now if we come back over here, we can display it, right? So what we can do is we have this image, we have this. And so what we can do is we can come over here and we can say response, and I'm going to say profile picture. Okay, I think this should work. And unless we called it something else. What do we call it? I think the spelling was different. Match profile picture. That's what we call it. Let's see what's happening. All right. So this should be the image here. We still need to do a little bit of work, but the hard stuff, right? The backend, or the logic, the matching, all of that, that's pretty much done thanks to Supabase. This is why Supabase is awesome. Okay, so what we can do is this is kind of what we have here, and let's go ahead and run this app and see what's happening. Okay, I'm gonna log in as myself. Let me just double check. Login home looks good. Let's go ahead and run this app and see what's going on. All right, let's go ahead and log in. All right, here we are. And what do we have? We have this thing, but it's not being displayed correct. Let's go see what's going on. Do we see anything here? There's a backend query. There's a response. There's the profile picture. It's right here. Okay, the profile picture is there. Maybe it has some issues displaying it. So let me go ahead and see what I can do. I'm just gonna delete this right here. Go ahead and see what's going on over here. Match profile profile picture. That is correct. Let's go ahead and put, let me see just for testing. Let's see if this works. Yeah, this works. Let me go ahead and rerun this app, see if it's being displayed correctly. All right, so as you can see, this is being displayed correctly. We still need to display the buttons and stuff like that. Let me see if I can pull it up correctly to make sure that it's being displayed dynamically here correctly. So the mistake is here, we need to enter the JSON path. It's not really about the predefined path, right? So if we come over here and we do this, this is what we need to enter, right? So we need to enter this thing, right? So if we come back, this should work. Go ahead and try this, and that should work. Okay, let's go ahead and rebuild this. All right, and there we have it. So now it's being displayed, so I can swipe it left, I can swipe it right. And so what we need to do is we need some icons there, right? So that, you know, the user can see it, and we can, you know, we can control this widget either like this or with buttons if you want. Okay. And so the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to put some buttons there, right? So the way we can do it is we can just wrap this in a stack, and then we can just have buttons. Next, I'm going to put a row, and we're going to try to align this row exactly how we want. So if we come over here, now this row is at the bottom, and inside this row, we can put, you know, stuff we need to put. So I think it's going to be like a button icon. Let me take a look. Icon button. Okay, so as you can see, there's the button. We'll fix it up, and I'm gonna go ahead and duplicate this, and now we have two. Let's go ahead and do the right alignment, something like this, maybe something like this, and let's go ahead and do we can put a container, right? Go ahead and put a container so that we can put some background color. Right, so something like this, and then what we can do is we can put a row inside this container, and we can put the buttons there. Okay, and now this container can be expanded like this, and we can even do something interesting, right? So this container has opacity, right? So we can even like you know, increase the opacity how we want. And so now we have it expanded here. We don't really care about the width, so we can remove the width. As far as the height, maybe something like 75, I think is going to be nice. And row, we spread it apart, something like this. And let's go ahead and see how we can get these icons working. I want it to be a bit bigger. So let's make it 30. Let's make this 50. So something like this, something like this. In fact, border radius, do we want it to be a circle? I don't know. I think this looks good. I think like a border radius of 20 looks good. Let's go ahead and change the icon. So this is a check mark. Actually, yeah, no, swipe left is, or erase. I don't know what the check mark. Let's see. So check mark is going to be this one. Swipe right is yes, something like this. And this is going to be no. So it's going to be delete maybe? No, delete X. How do you find it with an X? There's nothing here. We can do this, but I think I want like an X. Cross. That's it. That should find cross, delete doesn't work. Mark, X cross. You know what? Maybe it'll come to me, but I'm just gonna put something else. What is it not? I'm gonna put this. It'll come to me, I think, throughout the video. Throughout the tutorial. Okay, so that is what we have. Not interested. Well, how about this? Maybe this is original, and we can increase the icon size to 30, and this one also to 30. Maybe this is the right one. Okay, let's make it red. Let's make it error. Okay, and let's remove the fill color. And in fact, border. Do we need the border color? Why don't we just make this 40, button size 60, 40, 60. Maybe this is gonna be good enough. So what is that? 50, 70, 70. Let's go ahead and remove this. Let's remove this. Let's make this green. Success. And that's it. Okay, so that is kind of what we have. Looks good. Maybe we do need the border. I don't know. Something like, no, that's too light. I don't know. Okay, let me remove the border. We'll see. Okay, so that is what we have here, and we can even experiment with this container opacity, right? So we can have, maybe that's too much opacity, 0.8, maybe something like this, or 0.9. Okay, so maybe something like this. And here we can attach actions to them, right? So we're gonna open this up, add an action, and we are gonna go ahead and find this widget. Right, so we have this control swipeable. We can select it, and we can trigger an action. So this is going to be trigger left swipe, and this is going to trigger right swipe. Go ahead and find trigger right swipe. Okay, and so now they're triggered. Now what happens when they're triggered? Well, what happens is the swipeable stack callback is executed, right? So if we come over here, you have these callbacks. And so now we need to do something. And so here is where we need to execute the Supabase query essentially, right? So on left swipe, it's going to be the same thing, create a record, but true, like is false, whereas on right swipe, like is true. So let's go ahead and do that real quick. So I'm going to do insert a row into swipes. And here we can set the fields, delete this because that's default. Swiper ID is the authenticated user. And swipe ID is the person. That's the card, right? So if we come over here, we have this thing here. What we need to do here is we need to pull up the first card, right? So what we can do is get first few items. In fact, item with index first. And here we can do JSON path. Okay, and we can get the ID. And I think it was, I don't remember if it was this. I'll look it up. So we got the user ID. Liked is what? Left swipe is false. Okay, because that's our way of saying not interested. Let's go ahead and look up this potential match ID. So this is what we want. We want this potential match ID. Okay, so let's go back and let's put it right here. Potential. All right. So like is false. Okay. So now what we can do is we can just copy this whole action, open this up and do something very, very similar. Like this true when you swipe right. And that's it. So now we have this initial flow. So now let's go ahead and test this out. Let me go ahead and rebuild the app. All right, there's the app. And now we're seeing the only possible match that, we have access to right now. And so whatever I do is the last match. Okay. And so let's say I'm interested. I'm going to do this. Okay. So now let's take a look at what happened with our database, because that's the key. So I'm looking at some rows and I don't remember if we had those before or if we didn't, but let me try this. Let me go to our SQL editor and see if there's some other potential matches. Okay, so there are no more potential matches. So it looks like it recorded it because it's in the swipe table, right? So if you go over here, it should be recorded. So it's probably this last one, right? So swiper ID CD, is that me? Probably, yeah, it's me. CD and 601. It's probably me. And so let me double check. So if I click over here, James, so that's me. And this should be Michelle. Okay. And if we take a look at 601, so if we come over to our profiles table, and if we take a look at 601, this is the last one. This is her picture here. So if I open this up, that's her right here. Okay. So that means this logic worked. Okay, so now we've swiped yes, and she swipes yes on me. It's going to be a match. There's going to be another record created in that table. But if I run this app, right, I should not see any matches. And in fact, any potential matches, there's no more, right? So it's telling me that you must display at least one card. Okay, so there's no other people to display, and it's erroring out. This widget is giving me an error. And so what we need to do here is we should not display it. I don't know if it's possible to do it on the widget itself. Yeah, empty list widget. Okay, so we can do something here. And here we can display something like, you've ran out of people to match, come back later, or something like that. And so at least right now, this logic seems to be working in this on this screen right here. All right, so the next thing that I want to work on is the matches screen. Okay, and this is also going to serve as kind of the chat screen. So we're going to go ahead and create a new page over here, and I'm just going to call it matches. All right, and there's the matches. I'm going to say matches. And before I go further, I want to make sure that there's a way to get to this page. So we need to create a nav bar so that we can get to all of these pages. And we need to create this nav bar in all of these pages. Okay, so there's a nav bar for home and a nav bar for matches. All right. And let's go ahead and change the icon here. Let me see people. So I think something like this would be nice. All right. So the matches is going to be your basic list view with the people that we matched. Okay, so it's kind of like a chat, in a chat app, a chat screen. So we're going to start off with a list view, come over here and add this, and we're going to expand it. So it takes up the whole column. Okay, because we don't really need anything else. So we wanted to take up, as much space as it needs. But also remember, this is also a type of constraint, right? So with list view, it's very important to give them a constraint, right? It's always a good idea to give them a constraint, okay? Because there's a quick tip. So without a constraint, if you have this, you can't turn this off. But with a constraint, you'll be able to turn this off, and this makes it a lot more performant, okay? Just a quick tip there. All right, let's go ahead and add some things to them. So I'm gonna put a card just to get kind of started here. And inside the card, I'm gonna add a row. And right now, I'm just gonna create a very, very simple list view. Later on, maybe we'll take a look at a screenshot of some of these apps and we'll fix it up a little bit later in the tutorial. But right now I just want to get it working and just get something out there, because that's kind of how I build apps. I just want to make sure it works. Give it the padding, and let's go ahead and give it some stuff. So what are we going to display? We're going to display an image of the person, and we're going to display their name, right? Who the person is. So we're going to start off with the image. So here's the image, and we'll have to limit it, right? We'll have to, well, I think even 100 by 100 is too big. I think 50 by 50 should be. Okay, and here we can kind of, figure out what we want, how do we want to position the image, right? And so you can do something like this. You can do something like this. For the most part, this is going to be good. This one here, this cover, right? We want to cover the entire available space. And this is going to be the image of the person. Okay, next we're gonna have the text, and well, we need some padding. And for the text, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna expand it, because I want it to take up the whole thing. And there's one more thing that I want, and that is the ability to delete chats. Okay, so this is gonna be an icon, but not just any icon, an icon button. And so this is gonna be at the end, and this is gonna be the ability to delete. So I'm gonna remove the fill color. I'm gonna make the border radius a little bit less, and I'm gonna change the icon to trash. I think there's a trash icon, something like this maybe, and that will be the way to delete it. I don't think we even need a border color. I don't know. Let's see. Let's make it, yeah, this is fine. Maybe make it a little bit bigger later. That's fine. Let's do a little bit of padding here. I'm gonna do 10. Actually, I'm gonna do this, and yeah, this is fine. Maybe make it a little bit bigger, maybe 18. Okay, perfect. So this is going to be a list of existing chats. Okay, so now we have this here. Let's go ahead and feed it from the query. Let's go ahead and get our data. This is going to be a Supabase query, matches, list of rows. And here we need a filter, right? So we need to make sure that we are there, right? So we need to filter it by make sure that we are one of these IDs, because we're going to have a lot of matches there. Okay. And so if we have this filter here and we say equal to, and we have another filter, this filter is going to be an AND filter. Okay, and so that is not what we want, right? Because we're never going to be both, right? We're never going to be both. And so one thing that we can do is, well, there's a lot of things that we can do. And one thing that we can do is we can simplify it, right, by coming into matches and by creating another field that contains both of these in an array. And once both of these are in an array, it's going to be easy to look up, right? So this is one approach. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to come in here and I'm just going to put user IDs. Okay, and this is going to be a UUID as an array. Okay, and so we're going to do that. And then what we can do is we can take this right here, copy cell content, come over here. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to do this. Okay, and I'm just going to save it for now. And then I'm going to copy this, come back here, and I'm going to enter it again. Okay, so now what's nice about this is that it's going to be easier to look up. And so I'm going to go back to Flutter here. I'm going to refresh our schema. And now we have this user IDs, which is a list of strings. Come back over here. And now we can have a really nice filter. So I'm going to say Supabase query. I'm going to say matches. And now I'm going to add a filter. I'm going to say where user IDs contains. And then I can have us, right? Authenticated user ID. So that means that we are a match on there, right? At least we're somewhere. Okay. So I'm going to say confirm. And that's going to expand our query. Now, there's another thing that we need to do, right? So when we are displaying the match, we need to make sure that we're not displaying ourselves, right? Because remember, over here, we have two users here, or here, we have two IDs. So we need to make sure that we're displaying the other person. And we need to look up who the other person is. Okay, and so what we need to do here is we need some logic to get the other ID, right? We need to get the other ID. Okay, and so what we can do is we can have some logic over here that takes the list of these, uses something like a code expression, a custom code, and it gives us the other person. Okay, we can do something like that. And so as an example, let's say we come over here and we want to display the other person. Well, it's actually very easy. We're going to create a code expression that's going to accept the us as the first argument, right? So this is going to be authenticated user ID. So it knows at least who we are. And then it'll be able to tell us who the other person is, right? By comparing us and seeing, where we are. So this is auth user here. And then I'm going to pass another argument, which is going to be a list of strings, which is the array, right? So if we come over here, this is the list of IDs, and this is user IDs. And so now what we need to do is we need to return the other user. Okay, so I'm going to say, I'm just going to say user IDs, and then I'm going to compare the first element to the user, because if it's not the first element, it's the other element, the second element. Okay, so I'm going to say equals to auth user. So if it's the first element, then give us back the first element. Otherwise, give us back the second element. And let's check our return type. Where's our return type? Right here, and it should figure it out. So we have that. Let me see what's going on. Are we user IDs? It's capital I. Okay. Oh, it's not underscore. It's like this. Okay. And so now this is going to display the other user ID. Okay, so let's go ahead and run this app and see how it looks. All right, here we are. Let's go ahead and log in. All right, there we are. And yeah, we don't have any users. We're going to fix that later. But if we come over here, guess what? We have a match. And this is the other user ID. So this should be one of the females that I tried to match previously. Okay, so if we go back CD395, let's go ahead and look up in our profiles who that person is, who that profile is. And this is right here. Okay, so it's actually showing me, that's actually myself. Okay, so that's not correct. I think we have a mistake. That's actually myself. So that is a mistake. So let's go see what's going on over here. Do we have logic errors? That is incorrect. So user ID is auth user. We need to list, it should be the other way around. Because if the first one is the auth user, give us the other one. It should be reversed. Okay, that is the issue here. Okay, let's go ahead and reload this. All right, come back here. Now we have 00FA. And if we come over here, this is this match, right? And this is... well, I don't even need to look it up. This is Rebecca, but that probably doesn't mean much. But if I jump into our public right here and I take a look at matches, excuse me, I can see that right here, 00FA, CD395. So this is me. This is Rebecca. And by the way, we still need to do something else. So in this matches, we need to enter this field here because we haven't modified that. We're going to do that in just a second. But right now, I just want to double check. So I am CD315. So if I go over here, James, so this is correct. So now we're able to display the other person, right? So the person that we have matched, okay? So this is good, but we need to display the name, okay? So we need to do a couple of other things. But before we do that, let me go ahead and make sure that the matches logic is done correctly, okay? Because the matches is actually inserted by the database, right? So we need to make sure it's done in the database correctly. So we're going to come back here, SQL editor. Remember, we have this amazing function right here that does this insert, right? So it does this potential, this is get potential matches, this thing here, right? So here it does this insert into matches. And so what we need to do is we need to insert an array, right? So we need to do new swiper ID, new swipe ID. Okay, so we need to make sure we do that. I'm going to go ahead and replace this function. So we're not deleting any data. We're simply replacing this function. Oh, and we need to make sure that we have this. This is set up. So this is this matches table. I'm going to rerun it and we get an error because this, I believe, should be like this. Array. Okay, I think this looks good. Let's go ahead and run that again. Still an error. Let's go ahead and debug it. What is that syntax? Array. That should be right. Language. Let me go ahead and accept that. Is that gonna fix it? Let's go and see what we did wrong. User IDs. It should be an array. Let me see what's going on. Array new. What are we changing it? Okay, so it removes. Okay, so it removes the space. It's not changing anything. Still doesn't like it. Let me go ahead and see what the issue is. See if you can debug it again. Because I forget the exact syntax to do it, and that's okay. You're not supposed to remember everything, so I don't like what it's telling me. New swiper ID, new swipey ID, user IDs. All right, so I think I almost got it right. I believe the correct syntax is this. Okay, let's go ahead and execute that. That works. Okay, so I tried two combination, and this would have been the third combination, right? So you need the array, and you need square brackets, not parentheses, okay? So now we've updated our trigger function, and now anytime that a new match is created, it's gonna create this list, and this is gonna be easy for us in order to filter the matches for ourselves, okay? All right, so this is done, and the next thing that I wanna do is I want to actually display the name, right? Not the code expression. Okay, and how do we do that? Well, the way we do that is by essentially getting the query. We need to query the profiles for a specific user. So we know who this user is because we have this code expression. And so what we need to do is we can do it on a row level because we need to get all of these things. We might also delete this match. So I think on the row level would be nice. And so we can come over here, we can add a query. And what we can do is we can do a Supabase query, and we're going to do it on profiles, and we're going to just one profile, right? And we're going to have this filter where user ID is equal to, and now we can have this code expression. Okay, so let me go ahead and copy this code expression so we don't have to redo it. I'm going to go ahead and copy this variable, go on this row level, and I'm going to do the Supabase query profiles. This is just a single row, and we're going to do user ID equal to, and here I'm just going to feed this code expression. Okay, and that's going to return the code the specific user ID there. There it is, and that should hopefully work. Okay. So now we can come over here, and we no longer need to have this code expression. We can actually display the data, right? So this is this profiles. As it happens to be, I don't have the name, right? So the name it should be stored in profiles. In fact, this is the right table, so we need to add it, but it's not there yet. But the profile picture is. So at least let's go ahead and get the profile picture. So you can simply search for it, profile picture. And I'm going to go ahead and add the name field right now. I'm going to come back over here, profiles, and add the name field. I'm just going to put name, and type is text. All right, and let's go ahead and put it somewhere in the beginning. And so this is James. This is who is this? I think this is Michelle, and this is 00 Rebecca. So now we have the names, we have everything. We need to refresh our schema. Supabase, get schema, and now profiles has name. Come back here, and get the name in there. So you can simply type name, and you should have it there. Okay, and in case, default value, I'm just going to put E for empty. And let's go ahead and make this a little bit bigger. Button size, icon size, let's make it 30, and let's make this 50, so it's nicely centered, and it looks good. This thing, it has a kind of a new line there. Okay, so this looks pretty good, looks pretty clean. Let's go ahead and run it and make sure it's displaying the right thing. All right, come back over here, and Rebecca, and there's Rebecca. That's our match right there. We can delete the match, and that's easy by simply deleting the match. But there is a thing, there is a trick, because if we delete this match, we're gonna match her again, and so maybe we need some kind of a flag. We'll see. And we also need to have the flow to the chat so we can chat with them, but at least it's being displayed correctly at this point. Now I really hope you guys are enjoying this tutorial so far. Now if you're interested in building apps with no code, you're interested in taking your ideas and turning them into fully functioning mobile or web apps, then you guys need to definitely check out my flagship training, Mastering FlutterFlow. FlutterFlow is the absolute best tool when it comes to building apps with no code. And so using FlutterFlow, you can build all kinds of apps quickly and easily. And when you become a member of Mastering FlutterFlow, you will get access to step-by-step video modules that walk you through each of the concepts that you need to understand in order to build apps with FlutterFlow. Now, when you join Mastering FlutterFlow, you will also get access to our private Discord community, where myself and other members of the community will be more than happy to assist you with any issues or any problems that you may encounter. So it doesn't matter if you have any questions about stuff in the training, or you're building an app and you need help solving an issue or getting advice, we will be more than happy to help you out to the best of our ability. And so you're not only going to be getting access to the training, you're going to be getting lifetime access to the community as well, where we will always help you out to the best of our ability. Additionally, if you're looking to build production ready no-code apps, you need to have a good backend. And the backend that I use in all of my apps is Supabase. It is open source and absolutely free. And if you're looking to also get started with Supabase and you want to use it as a backend in all kinds of apps, then I highly recommend that you guys check out Mastering Supabase, my other training that walks you through all the different pieces that you need to master in order to use Supabase as a backend in your apps. And just like with Mastering FlutterFlow, when you join Mastering Supabase, you will also get access to a private Discord community where myself and other members of the community will be more than happy to help you out with any Supabase related issues. To learn more about each of the trainings, check out the links in the description below the video. All right, the next thing that I want to work on is the chat feature. Okay, so I'm going to come in here, I'm going to create a new blank page, and I'm going to say, actually it should be messages, okay, because well, chat is kind of like mashes. And we are going to be getting a couple of parameters. So if we come to this database over here and we go into public and we click on messages here, right? So we need to get the chat ID and so that we can enter the new messages, linking them to a specific match. Okay, so now I'm going to come back here and I'm going to say that this page needs to get the chat ID. So I'm going to define the parameter. In fact, why doesn't it get the entire row? Right, the entire chat row or the match row. Well, this is going to be called the chat row, but it's really a match row, right? Actually, no, this is not SQL. This is going to be Supabase row, and I'm going to say this is matches, right? We're getting the whole match row, so we can pull up the information that we need. And this is going to say chat with, and we'll fill it in later. And now we have the whole row, okay? And so at this point, we can do a query and we can get the messages for that chat. Okay, but we don't want to do it at the top level. We want to do it here. Okay, so let's go ahead and define the page. So we have the column. Inside the column, we're going to have a list view that will display the messages. And following that, we are going to have a row that will have other information, right? So below it, we're going to have a row. Now this list view, I want to expand it. And then I can remove the shrink wrap. Okay, that's going to be a lot better for performance. And this row here, right? What do we need inside the row? Well, we need a text input. We're going to type our text over here, and we're going to get this text field, and we need a button to send the message. Okay, and I want to fix up this input like I always do. I don't like this underline. I like this outline here, and it looks good. This is good enough to kind of get us started with. And I believe we can also have a background color. There's a text primary color. I believe there's a way to get a fill. Yeah, if we can do a fill, we can have a fill color. So we can make it white, something like this. Okay, that looks pretty clean. And we have the button. Maybe do a little bit of padding on the button from the right. And the next thing I want to do is display the messages. So here we can actually query right on the list view. So I'm going to come back here, Supabase query, messages, and I need to create a filter because I only care about the specific chat ID. I'm going to say equal to, and I'm going to come back here, chat row and ID, confirm. Okay. So now we have a list view with a query, and now we can give it, we can display the messages. So the messages are going to be displayed inside a row, right? We're going to have a row, and ultimately we're going to have a stack so that one message is here, one message is here. Now inside the row, we are going to have a container. That way we can have a background, right? And then inside this container, I'm going to have a text. Okay, so now what I want to do is I don't want this container to have a fixed constraint, right? Fixed size. I want it to take as much as it needs depending on the text. So I'm going to remove all this, and containers are nice because they simply take up as much as they need, or you can give them a set constraint. And if you guys want to learn more about constraints and UI design and all of that, watch the video that you see appearing on the screen. Okay, that is my kind of UI constraint tutorial. Very, very important, must watch video. Okay, next I want to do a little bit of padding on this text so it looks a little bit nicer. So maybe a 10. Okay, that looks decent. Okay, so something like this. And this is going to be a message here. Let's do a padding on the container as well so that it kind of sets apart from the row. Okay, so that looks pretty good. And we can also do a border radius. So something like an 8, I believe, looks really nice. Okay, so now we have this text here. And so now what we can do is we can wrap this row inside of a stack and we can duplicate this row. Okay, and so one row is going to be the other person and the other row is going to be us. Okay, so let's say this is going to be a row us and this is row other. Now row us is going to be right justified and row other is going to be left justified, which it already is right here. Okay, and so now we need some conditional visibility so that we are not displaying both of them at the same time, because typically it's only going to be one message per line. So this row us needs a condition, and the condition is whether, you know, this specific message, right? So like this message right here, this sender ID is set to us. So if it's set to us, great. That means, well, this row is gonna appear. And so I'm gonna say is equal to authenticated user. And I'm gonna copy it because we need another condition for row other, which is the opposite. And so here what we can do is we can do this and we can simply paste it and we can simply say not. And so now there, you know, these two messages are never going to appear both per row. It's going to be one here or one here. Okay, so that is the first thing. And now let's go ahead and actually display the message. So message right here, let's give it a default value just in case, which it should never have. And let's do the same. Did I do it correctly? Yes, I did it correctly. Okay, and the same thing here. And we come over here, message empty. All right, so that is what we have. And now that should display the messages. Okay, so but we don't have any messages, right? Let's go ahead and create a couple of messages. Let's say, well, let's pick a chat ID from the matches. So we only have one match, and let's say it's me sending the message, right? So it's me sending the message, James, hey. So I send the first message, there's a match, and now it should hopefully display it here, okay? Because, you know, the ID is going to be different, so it's going to be appeared on the right hand side. But before we run our app, we need to make sure that we can actually go to the screen, right? Because it's not going to be on this nav bar, it's going to be from this card here. So I'm going to come over here. I'm going to do a navigate to messages, and I'm going to pass the chat row, which is this matches. All right, that looks good. Let's go ahead and rebuild our app, start a new session, and see what happens. All right, let's go ahead and log in. There we are. There's no other possible prospective matches to show. We're going to fix that later. But if we come over here, we have this one match. So if we click over here, we can chat with them, and there's the initial match message. Okay, so there's hey, and what we can do is we can add another message. So this is CD395 is me, but if I add another row, chat ID, and this is the chat ID, and the sender ID is Rebecca, I think. I don't remember the other person. Hey, how's your day? Okay, so something like this. We hit save, and now if we reload the app, we should see two messages. Yeah, Rebecca. Okay, and so there you see this the next message. So it's a nice UI. It's very clean. There's one thing that I want to do is that, and that is add a time, right? So I also want to see, you know, how when was that message sent? Was it sent yesterday? Was it sent 2 seconds ago? Right? That is very, very important. And I'm going to place this time information, time detail below the message. And when I say below, that means that we need to wrap it in a column. Right, so I'm going to wrap it in a column and I'm going to duplicate it. Okay, so now we have this thing here, and I'm going to do the same thing here, wrap this in a column, and I'm going to duplicate. In fact, I can just duplicate it and say wrap in column, which does the same thing. Okay, so the first is the message. The second one is the time, and this is this created at. When the message was created at, let's go do some nice formatting. I like relative. Okay, you can use anything that you want. I think relative is kind of cool. So we're going to come over here, create it at, and I'm going to do, okay. Another thing that we can do is we can make it a little bit smaller, right? So font size maybe 12 and something like this. Okay, we can also kind of decrease the padding a little bit. There's a lot of padding here, but we'll do that later, right? Let's go ahead and reload this. Let's see how it looks. Okay, come back over here, Rebecca, and now it says 5 minutes ago, 2 minutes ago. It looks pretty good. There's a lot of padding, and so you know, you may want to, yeah, let's go ahead and make it a little bit, not as much, right? And so the way we do it is we come back to the top one, and here what we can do is we can have the padding everywhere, right? Because the bottom already has padding. Its own, this relative already has its own padding, and so we can come over here and that is what we have. Okay, so now we have a message and we don't have as much padding. Let's go ahead and reload this. All right, click here, and now it looks a lot better. All right, so this chat is starting to come together. Let's work on the second half, which is this thing right here, sending the messages. And this is fairly straightforward. Let's change the button. And all we need to do is create another row. Insert row, and we're going to be inserting a message, right? So say, let's expand all of this. And chat ID, we have the chat ID. Chat row ID, and now we just need the sender. Well, the sender is authenticated user, cannot be anybody else. And the message is the widgets thing, and that's it. Well, almost. We need to refresh this page, and we can do that by doing this refresh database request. You can just select this, and then we want to clear the input field, right? So you can simply search for clear text, and simply select this, and that's it. And that message should appear automatically. And before I run this app, let's do sorting on this, right? So, you know, we want to sort the messages so that they appear in some kind of order. So we're going to come back here, ordering, and we're going to do created at, and what we want to do is in increasing order, right? So that's going to have just, you know, messages that increase in time. So the latest messages are going to be on the bottom. Okay, I'm going to reload this. All right, so come back here, click here, and what do we have? So now they're at least sorted, even though they are appearing the same. But we can send more messages and we're guaranteed to see them here. So I'm going to say good, and you and your day. Okay, so now we have this. And let's say time passes and let's say want to hang out this weekend. Something like this. Okay, so now we know that the messages are, you know, are guaranteed to appear in a particular order. Okay, so these are all stored in this messages for this chat ID, which is our matches. Okay. So this is really nice. Another thing we need to do is the back button, right? We want to make sure to go back to the matches. So let's go in here, and this is really easy. You can just show default button, and that button is there. Okay, so that's gonna have the button, so we can go back to the matches and see all the matches. Okay, so let's go ahead and reload that. All right, come here, click here, and we see the chat. We need that chat with. We're gonna fix that, but we can go back, which is kind of nice. Let's go ahead and get this working. Okay, so this chat with, how do we display the person, right? So we have access to this whole thing here, to that matches record, right? So if you go back here, we get access to this. And so it's the same way when you're displaying the message, right? It's the same exact way. Okay, and so if we come back over here to our matches, we're displaying the name because we have the chat record. So it's the exact same thing. So what we can do is we can come over here, in fact, this row, and we can copy that, right? We can copy that because we need to do the query. You know, we need to figure out who the person is because we're not passing that. It's not part of the chat records, right? It's part of the profile. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to copy this, and then I'm going to go back to messages, and I'm going to do it all the way at the top level. So we only execute it once. I'm going to paste it here, and now we need to make sure that we're passing. We have the auth ID, but we don't have this. We don't have the user IDs anymore, right? So if we go back here, this is what we are passing. So, well, in fact, we do have the user IDs. We have the user ID, so we're all good. So we can come back and pass that. So we can simply go to page parameters, share, and then user ID. So they're very, very versatile. Should hopefully give us the correct information here, okay? And now we have the profile, right? We have this profile that's at the top level, which means it's available everywhere. And now we can get the user, and so name. Okay, and that's gonna say chat with the other person. Okay, because we have that code expression there. Okay, let's go ahead and test this out. All right, come back here, click here, chat with Rebecca. Okay, so there you have it. This chat is pretty much done. We need to do a couple of other things. We need to have this logic and maybe a couple of other things. for this specific part of the app. Now, one issue that we have right now is if we have our matches here and we remove the matches, we lose all of that state, which means that we will potentially see Rebecca again. And I don't know if this is the correct behavior, because typically, you know, if you match somebody, but you do not want to have, you know, you want to unmatch them, you probably don't want to see them again, right? Because otherwise, you know, you match them, you unmatch them, and then you see them again. Like, I don't think that's the correct behavior. Now, if we delete it, we're going to have that behavior. So what we need to do is we need to keep track of the matches that we deleted. And so what we can do is we can, in our Supabase right here in these matches, we can create another column that will mark a particular match as deleted, but still keep the matches in the database. And so as an example, if I come over here and I say deleted, and I just say is, I can simply have it as a Boolean, and let's say the default value is false because it's not deleted. And then what happens is, you know, when we are doing that big query, when we're trying to get the new matches, it's going to see that we have that match. And so it's not going to display that user again. But when we are, you know, trying to display the matches on the screen, we can look at this flag and say, well, we only want to display matches that are not deleted. Okay. So as an example, let's say, let's go ahead and refresh our schema, come back here, do get schema, and come back over here. And so now if we come to matches, this thing is just going to set the flag. And so this whole thing, this list view, is going to have another filter. Well, we already have one filter, our user ID. I'm just going to have another filter where is deleted is equal to false, right? Because we only want to display the matches that are not deleted. And so this one is going to set it to true, but the matches remain in the database so that we can, you know, we can compare new users and see if they're there, right? Because that way we can decide whether to show a particular user, because if they're in the matches, regardless if they're deleted or not, you know, we're not going to be showing that match. Okay. And so here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to say, I'm going to add an action. We're going to do an update. Instead of a delete, we're going to update the row, and I'm going to say matches, return matching rows. I'm going to add a filter, which is this ID equals to this matches ID. And then we're just going to set the field, and that's just going to be this update is deleted, is deleted is set to true. And that's it. That's all we need to do. And you know, probably a good idea is to refresh this whole thing here, refresh database request, list view, and that's it. And so now, once we delete it, we're not going to be seeing it. Right, so this list view is going to be here. What are we? Supabase action that return must be given an output variable name. Okay, so let's give it an output variable name, affected, whatever, rows. And okay, because of this return matching rows, yeah, we don't really care about that. So okay, so now we are finding this ID and we're just setting deleted to true. Okay, and so now if I run it, it should not be displayed here, but for all intents and purposes, it will still be taken into account when we are trying to figure out who is the next user to display on the homepage. And that is exactly what we want, okay? Because we don't want to lose all this state when the match is deleted. Okay, let's go ahead and rebuild our app. All right, here we are, and we have this match. Okay, so now if I do delete, she's gone, but this match is still in the database, right? It's true. And now if we come over here, we still have no users because, you know, even though this person can, you know, is there and we no longer match them for all intents and purposes, it's checking. This thing is still checking. Okay, so that is a way to kind of solve that problem. And the next thing I want to do is I want to display something here, right? So on the main page, I want to make sure that this thing here, right? The swipeable stack, we have an empty list widget. Okay, so we need to display a component. I don't have a component, so I'm going to create a component right here, new component. And I think we have some similar components. If I search for empty, so something like this, we can modify it. Empty home list. Okay, so something like this. And now we can say something like, let's go ahead and put a person icon there. How about something like this? No users, no users. It seems that we don't have more users to show you. Okay, so something like this. This looks good. This looks good. And now we can come back to our home, select the swipeable stack. There we go. We can display it right here. And that's kind of how it's going to look. And we can even center this component. And we can also center it right here, put it in the middle. Okay, how do we do that? Let's come back here. Remember, it's a column, right? So we can do this. That should center it, center the stuff inside like this. In fact, we can do that and come back to home, and now it's centered. Okay, and now let's go ahead and run our app and see if it still crashes. All right, and there you have it. No users. It seems that we don't have more users to show you. Okay, so we ran out of users. Hopefully that should never happen in a real life scenario, but we need to handle that situation, that problem. And same thing for matches. Okay, so same thing for matches. I'm gonna duplicate this and I'm gonna say empty matches, and I'm gonna jump to our matches, and this list view I believe has an option. Yep, empty list widget. I'm gonna say component. I'm gonna say empty matches. We're gonna center it, view it. Okay, perfect. And I'm gonna come over here and I'm gonna change it. No matches. Go ahead and match. Go and match with someone. Okay, let's go ahead and reload this. Make sure everything is nice and working. All right, jump over here and it says no matches. Go and match with someone. Okay, so very, very nice. Typically, you will not run out of this. You should never see this screen, but you will see this screen here, so that is normal. And that is what we have so far. All right, so the next thing that I want to work on is the maps functionality, okay? And so what I want to have is I want to have an extra page where we can see the users, the different users that we have matched on the map. So let's go ahead and do that right now. Let's go ahead and add an extra page here. I'm just gonna say blank and I'm gonna say, okay. And we're gonna be using Google Maps. Okay, so I'm gonna say Google Map right here. And there is our Google Map. Okay, now we also need to have the navbar feature, and let's go ahead and find an icon for maps. This looks good. All right, so now we have, what do we have? We have the main page, we have our matches, and we have the maps. And so the way this is gonna work is that here you configure it whether you want none or single or multiple markers. You specify the marker type. This is going to be lat long because we're not using Firebase documents. And here you need to send the actual markers, which we're going to be storing and sending along. Okay, and all of this is nicely configurable. You can have an initial zoom level, you can zoom out, you can zoom in. All of that is very, very nice. And here we can have initial map center, which is our location. Now we need to have these coordinates stored somewhere, okay? And here we have the first dilemma. Okay, so if we go to our database and we go to our table editor and we have profiles. So in this profiles, for each record, we need to create a field called location. So I'm going to go ahead and create the field. And now the question is, how do we want to store those locations? Well, we have two main avenues that we can kind of pursue here for very, very basic map features, right? To just show the map coordinates on the map of the matches, and that's it. We can just store them as an array of numbers, of two numbers. And what we can do is we can just use something like a numeric, and we can just define it as an array. Okay, and that's going to be good enough. That way we can have lat long. The first is latitude followed by longitude, and you can have just an array. Okay, but if you want some advanced functionality, right? So if you want to be able to search and filter your prospective matches by a certain radius, right? So if I say I'm only looking for people to meet up within a 10-mile radius of where I am, or within a 20-mile radius, we won't be able to do this because now we need to have calculations. I mean, we can still store them as numeric and all of that and write the code ourselves, but it's going to be a lot of work because Supabase gives us a module that will automatically do all that calculations for us. Okay. And this module is called PostGIS, GIS, right? So if we go to our database, we go to extensions and you type post, you're going to find this module. This is PostGIS geometry and geography, spatial types and functions. And what this allows you to do is it allows you to not only store coordinates in a specific format, but it allows you to do calculations on them right inside of Supabase. And so if we want to have that filter, if we want to have that radius filter, or the distance filter, right? So like if we find a match, we want to display how far they are or how, if they're 2 miles away, 5 miles away, and that kind of thing. We want to be using this thing here. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to enable it here. I'm going to enable this extension. And now we need to store our locations, or our location data in a specific format. So if I go back to our table right here, and if I go into profiles, I'm going to come here. And now if I type location here, because I want to create a new field, if I come over here, I have new types. You see, I have a bunch of new types. These box, 2D, 3D, geography, geometry, etc., etc. And then we have these built-in types here. And so now we can use this geography type, right? This is a PostGIS type. The type representing spatial features with a, geodetic ellipsoidal coordinate systems. Okay, I have no idea what that means, but I know this is something we need to use because here we can use coordinates. We can encode coordinates into this right here. So I'm going to use this type here. The default value is null. And now we have that here. Now we can't enter this directly here, right? Because we can't do that. We have to use SQL. And so this query right here is going to update all the profiles and it's going to set this specific coordinate. You see this thing here, this is a specific function that we're using from that extension, which allows us to encode this coordinate into its specific format. And so once we have all of these coordinates encoded correctly, we will be able to do all kinds of interesting things. So things like using the radius, the radius searching, right? We will be able to find the distance, right? We can say, okay, this person is X amount from you, this person is Y amount of distance from you, etc., etc. And so this right here, this query is going to update all of the profiles to this one coordinate here, okay? But we don't want to update all the profiles to this one specific coordinate. We want to create natural coordinates, meaning that this profile is at this coordinate, this profile is at that coordinate. And so here's a SQL that basically updates each of these profiles to a specific coordinate in New York City. So if I execute this, now if we go back to our table and we jump into profiles, we have this location. As you can see, it's kind of this weird encoding, right? You can't really tell anything because it has its own encoding. And yeah, we can look it up. We can do all kinds of interesting things, but we can't really see it just by looking at this table. Okay, and so now that we have these coordinates here, we can execute all kinds of interesting queries. Okay, and so let's say I want to execute a query and tell me if there's anybody within a 10-mile radius of me, right? Meaning that are these two people exist within a 10-mile radius of me. And the way that you can do it is by coming in here and executing this query. Okay. Now I've used ChatGPT to generate it, but it's actually very, very simple. Okay, so we basically get all these fields from these tables, and here we have a query. Okay, so we're getting my record and then seeing if there's anybody else except me that exists within this 10 miles, right? So here you have 10 miles in meters, 1 mile is this meters. And it's using this function here to work on these fields here. Okay, so let's go ahead and execute it and see if it works. And as the case is, these two people, right, they're within a 10-mile radius. Okay, let's go ahead and make this within maybe within a 1 mile radius, right? So we're gonna divide this by 10. This becomes 1 mile, and we execute this, and what do we get? Nothing. So they're essentially within a 10-mile radius, but they're more than 1 mile radius. Okay, so if we multiply it by 10 again, we're gonna see these people. Okay, and this can become a function, a Supabase function with a argument. All right, so here you can send yourself as an argument, and you can send how many meters that you want, right? And we can use this function to return people that exist within a certain radius of of us. Okay, so let's go ahead and turn this into a Supabase function. And here we have the function for us, right? So this is called get profiles within a radius, UUID, and this is the radius. Okay, so if we execute this, we're going to have a function that we can execute. So we can simply start a new query, paste this, paste in our user ID. Okay, so I can go into profiles, get my user ID. So let's say, let me go get my user ID. I'm going to go into profiles. This is me. I'm going to copy this. I'm going to go to our SQL right here, paste my user ID, and specify the miles. Okay, so remember, this returns 2 records, and we get 2 records. If let's say I make this 5 miles. Are they still within 5 miles? Yes. How about 3 miles? Yes. 2 miles. One person, this Michelle here, is within 2 miles. So if I'm looking for people within 2 miles radius, 2-mile radius of where I am, well, I have this person here. I don't have the other person, right? Because she is, more. She's within a radius that's more than 2 miles, right? Within 3 miles or more. Within 3 miles, yes, but not within 2 miles. And if I put within 1 mile, none of them are there, right? So this is very, very helpful for all kinds of interesting use cases, right? One of them being the filtering, the searching, right? And so now what we can do is we have this get potential matches here, right? So we're going to come over here. We have this function here. And so here we have the original function, right? Get potential matches. We send the UUID and we send the gender, the gender that we're looking for, right? And here we can enhance this function by combining with the previous function. Okay, and this is what we have. So now we have the user ID that we send. This is ourselves. We send the preferred gender and we send the radius. Okay, and this should give us the people that we're looking for. So I'm going to go ahead and update this function. We're going to rebuild it. And now in order to test if this function works, we can go back to this query here, which calls that function using a familiar kind of select query, right? So we can say get potential matches. This is us, female within a 10-mile radius. If we execute that, we get no rows. Why are we not getting any rows? Well, because we've swiped. Remember, this takes into account swiping, right? So if we, let's say, if we go back to our table and we go into swipes, well, we have some swipes here, okay? So if I go ahead and delete these swipes, as well as delete the matches, we should hopefully have that function give us back the results that we're looking for. So let me go ahead and delete this match here. So I'm going to delete this match, and it's telling me I need to delete the messages first, which is correct. I'm going to go ahead and delete the messages because it references the messages. Delete the messages, delete the matches, and then I'm going to delete the swipes, delete all my swipes. It should work, right? Because we have no swipes. We have all these people that we can potentially match with, and we saw before that they're within a 10-mile radius of us. So if I execute this, we see those 2 matches. And if I execute 2, I'm going to be seeing just 1 match. If I put 3, I'm going to be seeing both matches. And if I put some other gender, well, I'm not going to be seeing any matches because they don't, there's nobody else that matches what I'm looking for, right? So if I come back to this, I see the matches. Okay, so now we have a function, this get potential matches, that's a lot more powerful than previously because now it operates by this radius. And so what that means is that we need to go back to our app and we need to modify how we're calling it, right? So we're going to jump to this API call, go into body, and we have one more argument. And this argument, I think, is called radius arg, if I'm not mistaken. And this is jump to this function there, radius arg, right? And so here we need to I'm just going to put 10 for testing. See if that works. And we're going to add this variable here. So I'm going to say radius. Radius is going to be an integer. And now I'm going to come in here and I'm going to put that radius directly. Okay, save, format. And now let me go ahead and test this. And let's say 10. So we should be getting 2 results. And we are getting 2 results. Okay, if I put, we should be getting just 1 result. And we get 1 result. If I put 1 within a 1-mile radius, we're not going to be getting anything. Okay? So now we have a much more powerful function. And so what that means is that in our settings, we can specify how far, we want to search, right? How far do these matches need to be? And so when we create our kind of user setting area, will be a user setting kind of page where we can set that radius, maybe via a slider as well. That's going to take it into account. Okay. And so now in our, the main page, right, this home page, this is going to take into account, right? Because remember, we're executing this API call, and now we need to pass a radius. So right now we don't, we don't have a radius set anywhere. So I'm just going to put 10 for testing. I'm just going to put 10 and be done with it. Okay. And so now that first kind of main piece is complete. The next thing that we have to work on is this maps UI. All right, so the next thing that I want to work on is the other half of this kind of maps, and that is actually displaying the maps. Okay, so we've just did the searching functionality, which was a little bit trickier, but displaying the maps is actually fairly straightforward. Okay, so all you need to do is pass in a couple of things. You need an initial point, which is going to be us, right, the authenticated user, and then we also need the coordinates of the matches. Okay, so all we need to do is go back to our database over here, go to tables, and whenever we have matches here, we can get the user IDs that we have matched and display their coordinates. One thing that we can do here is we can actually maybe have a field for them, right? So we can have another field for coordinates. But the main issue here is how we're going to be storing the coordinates, right? So remember, in our profiles, we are storing this special thing here, this special field using that special extension, okay? This geography field, okay? And the thing about this geography is that when we are encoding the coordinates in this geography field, we can do all kinds of interesting logic, all kinds of interesting operations. But what we cannot do is we cannot directly select the fields. Okay, so from FlutterFlow, we can just select this field and figure out the coordinates and then simply pass them to our map. Okay, and so in order for us to kind of pull up these records from Supabase and directly place these coordinates, these markers on the map with these coordinates, we need to just store these coordinates as coordinates. Okay, and so that essentially means is that while we can have this field here, in order to simplify our process, I recommend having another field where we're just storing the coordinates, and that way we can just look them up here when we need to without doing all kinds of operations. And furthermore, we won't be able to display it directly from FlutterFlow. Okay, and so what I'm going to do is I'm going to create another field, location coords, or actually I'm just going to say location 2. Okay, and this is going to be, I'm just going to use numeric, and I'm just going to make it an array. And we're essentially going to have the same coordinates here. Now, we do have the coordinates here that we initially used. They are one of these queries here. Let's go ahead and find them right there. So these are the query, these are the coordinates. So this is my coordinate here, and these are the other two coordinates. So I'm going to go ahead and copy this so that we have these coordinates here. All right, so I have these coordinates here. So I'm going to go back to that table, and I'm going to go ahead and update it, right? I'm going to go ahead and create these coordinates. So I'm going to do one for myself first. Okay, that's the first one. This is for ID2, which is this one right here. And this is ID3 right here. All right, so now we have these encoded coordinates, and we also have regular coordinates here, which is going to be easier to pull up the data. Now, the format actually is longitude, latitude, okay? Just as a note, okay? I thought it was latitude, longitude, but actually the real format is longitude, latitude. Okay, and so now we can pull up these this data and display them anywhere because we simply have an array of 2 numbers, right? This is enough for us to kind of pull this data, right? So all we need to do is come back here, update our schema, and get schema, go to profiles, and we have this location 2, which is a list of double. And so now if we need to, we can simply go here. Let's see. We can simply get these coordinates. Let's say we want to get Supabase query. Profiles, list of rows. Let's say we want to get all the rows. And so we're going to say confirm. Okay. And so now we have we have the data coming in. We're going to come over here, go into profiles. And here we're going to map our items. And we are looking for location 2. And here what we need is we need a type lang, okay, which we don't have. And so what we need to do is we actually need to use a code expression or a custom function because we won't be able to do it directly. So what we can do here is we can come here and we can say, well, let's see, custom function, create a custom function. That custom function will get a list of these arrays, these 2-element arrays, and convert them into a list of coordinates, okay? And that's pretty much it. So just to show you how this is going to be done, take a look at this. So return value is going to be an array of lat longs right here, list, and the argument is going to be an array of these coordinates, right? So it's going to be an array of double, and I'm just going to say allocations, and that's it. And so now all we need to do, we can just use, and let's go ahead and name this function locations into coordinates. Okay, and here all we need to do is use a code pilot and say convert of locations consisting of, which is an array of, which is a list, a longitude, into a list of lat longs. Okay, and let's see if it's able to figure it out. Let's see if it's smart enough. Okay, and this is what it has. It looks exactly what it is. We're going to copy this function, copy it right here, and we have this function. So all it's doing is going through our list and it's converting it into lat long, and it's smart enough to know that this first one is a longitude and this one is a latitude, because a lat long is the opposite, and this is exactly what we need. So I'm going to hit save, and now all I need to do is pass locations, and here all I can do is map items, and I can just get this location. Now it's a little tricky here because it wants a list double, but this just wants a double, which is not right because it's going to be a list double. And so what we can do instead is we can try to modify this function to take in the actual list of not locations, but actually a list of these Supabase rows. Okay, so we can say profiles. We're going to come back to this, and here we're going to say locations, and I'm going to say we're going to rename this to records, and now this is records, and then we're going to say records length. We're going to increment this, and we're going to say records I locations, and here we can say, well, we know what they are. So the first one is going to be the well, this one here is the second element, and that is the lat, and then we're gonna do it here. Let's see if that works. I, and then locations 0. Is it location? It's locations 2. Let me see. Let me take a look. What is it exactly? Location 2. That's what we need. Okay, so we're gonna do that, and that's gonna be a lot easier. Okay, now we simply add the elements, and I hit save, and now we can pass in our entire rows. And so this is going to display the locations of everybody. And the center element, well, this is going to be us, right? So here, what we can do is we can filter it, right? We can say, well, I want to filter these. I want to say we're a single condition, and this is item in list, and get row field, and I'm going to say user ID, and user ID is authenticated user ID here. And so I'm finding myself, and then once I filtered myself out, I need to get the coordinates, right? So I'm going to get item, the first one, and now I need to get location 2. And that's not going to be enough because this thing expects a lat long. This thing right here is something else. Okay, so once again, we need to use a, we can actually maybe use a code expression here. No, we can't use a code expression. It's not available here. Okay, and so we can use a custom function. And in fact, here we can use that same custom function, right? We can simply search for it, find it, and this list, we can filter, right? We can take this list and we can just filter it on us. In fact, we have it here, right? We can just filter ourselves, and that's going to get just us, right? And here we can say item at index, and that's going to get us the coordinates, which is that one coordinate of us, right? So we're reusing the function, whereas here, it's everybody, right? It's everybody, including us. And so here we need to filter ourselves out, okay? And so what we're going to do is we're going to filter ourselves out. We're going to say filter. We're going to come over here, and we're going to say item in list. No, we need to create a condition. Create a condition, item in list. We're going to say get row field, user ID. And here we can say does not equal to authenticated user ID. Okay, so that filters us. And now it's all the records except us. Okay, so all of these points are going to be the other people, whereas the center is just going to be us, which is exactly what we want. So let's go ahead and run this app and see if it works. But we have a couple of issues. So we need an API key. And where do you get your API key? Well, you get it from Google, right? So we're going to go into Google's console, and we're going to search for API and services. We're going to go into library. And we need to make sure that we have maps turned on. So this is, let's say, Android, and we have it turned on. So if you don't see manage, you're going to see something like enable this, because it says here enabled. And I have all of these enabled, by the way. This one is enabled as well. And so now all we need to do is type credentials. So we can exit out, go into credentials, and create an API key. Okay, so I can create the credentials API key, and that API key is going to have access to all of these map products. I'm going to copy this key. I'm going to go back here. I'm going to click here, and I'm going to paste this key. Okay, and that's it. No more errors. Okay, so let's see if this works. Let's go ahead and run this, and let's see if these points, the map is going to show up correctly. All right, here we are. Let's go ahead and log in. All right, here we are, and we have some prospective matches, because remember, we deleted all the matches and the swipes. And so if we come over here, we have no matches. If we come here, and guess what? We see the other two people. We see the other two profiles. All right, these are not the matches. These are just the profiles. Okay, because we're just testing. But it is correct, because we have three profiles in total. So if we come over here, we have 3 profiles. I'm excluding myself. So it's the other 2 females here. Okay, it's these 2 coordinates there. All right, so now that this works, the next thing that we need to do is kind of bring it all together. All right, so now that we have this map working as it should, we need to adapt the logic here for the matches. Okay, we're not going to be querying just profiles by themselves. We're going to be displaying the matches here on this map here. Okay, and so what we need to do is we need to have a way for us to get the match information from the location information on the matches. And so if we go to our table editor here, we have the matches, but we don't have any location information. So while we can store locations on each of the match and all that stuff, it's a lot better to do it as a view. Okay, it's a lot better to do it this way. So I went ahead and prepared a view for us that we can simply execute. And so here's some code that creates a view with the location information for both matches. And so then we can kind of decide what location are we interested in. So I'm going to execute this, and now we have a separate view here. Okay, match locations view, that's going to display the location information for the matches. Okay, so because we don't have any matches, we don't have any swipes, let's go ahead and create some records so that we at least, have this thing working. Okay, so let me go ahead and jump into my app, and let's go ahead and start swiping. All right, so here's our app. So I'm gonna say yes, and I'm gonna say yes. Okay, and that's it. I'm up. We only have 2 females in our database, and so I don't have any matches because they haven't matched me back. And so what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go to my database, take a look to see if they're correctly being displayed here. And so as you can see, I matched on both of these, and I matched right. So like is true, but they haven't matched me back. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to log in as each one of them, and I'm going to like myself from their account. Okay, so I'm going to see, let me check who this is. So this right here is Rebecca at Rebecca.com, and this right here is Michelle at Michelle.com. Now I can't log out at this point because we don't have this functionality. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to come in and quickly create a sample page with a logout functionality. So I'm going to click here, and we're going to fix it up later. So this is going to be my logout page, and I'm just going to create a button here, and I'm going to center this button, and I'm going to center the column. Okay, so now this button is centered. I'm just going to say logout, and I'm going to link it, add an action, logout. Okay, and I'm gonna make sure that it's accessible. Show a nav bar, and let's go ahead and do some kind of a profile, something like this. Okay, and this is gonna be my logout page. All right, there we are. So I'm gonna log out. Oh, it looks like there's some issue. I think I forgot to set it correctly. Let me see what's going on. Oh, I have it redirect to itself. That should not be what it should be doing. Yeah, I set to navigate. It should be Supabase authentication logout. So bug there. Let's go ahead and rebuild our app. All right, and there it is. So I'm now logged out. Let me go ahead and log in as Rebecca and like myself. Okay, so Rebecca right here sees other people. Okay, so this is the other female. All right, so now I'm logged in as Rebecca and I'm seeing another female, and I think that should be just the male so that I can like myself. Let me go ahead and see what's happening here in the profiles, if it is set up correctly. Let's see. So Rebecca, yes, that is correct. And the filtering, I think the filtering is not set up right now correctly. Let me double check. Let me go ahead to home. Yeah, the filtering, I'm pretty sure is not, it's not correct right now. Yeah, it's set to F. And so what we need to do is we need to set it. I'm just going to set it. So here, I'm just going to set it to M, so that I can match myself, and then we're gonna fix it depending on the preferences. All right, and there we see it. That's myself in this app. So I'm gonna like myself, and then there's no more because we have a filter. And so now I can log out, and well, first I can check the matches. I should have one match. Okay, so I have one match there, and if I go to match locations view, I should see the locations, and I do not. Yeah, I do not see locations. Okay, I'm seeing this, but I'm not seeing that. Okay, so that is a problem, but I still want to match with the other person. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to log out and I'm going to log in as Michelle. And now I'm seeing myself again. I'm going to like it. And now I should have two matches. Okay, so now I have two matches here. And if I go in here, I have two matches as well, but there's some issue with locations. Okay, so we are capturing the longitude, but we're not capturing the latitude. So I think it's hopefully a minor issue. So let's go and let's go ahead and see what's happening here. So location 20, location 21. This looks good to me as match locations. So basically, if we take a look, what are we missing? I think this one is there. This one is not. P1 location, P2. Let me double check if the locations, and we're looking at profiles. Are profiles set correctly? Yeah, profiles are here. Everything is there. Interesting. But this is no, because we're not. So 73968 285 428. Let me double check what's happening. 285. This one is this one. 285 468. What is that? Okay, so this is Rebecca's. What was the other one? 428. 428 is mine. Right? Yeah, 428 is mine. And the other match is 566428. Okay, so we're capturing Rebecca. Let me double check something. What's happening? Yeah, this is correct. It's in the correct order. We're just not capturing the first one. Interesting. Interesting. Very, very interesting. We're not capturing the other one, the second one. Okay, let's go ahead and take a look. So it is location 21, P1, P2. Interesting. Let me see if what happens. Let me double check what happens if we reverse it. Okay, now it's reversed. And now it's the correct order because this is now longitude, this is latitude, but it's still not displaying the latitude. So we have 1, but we don't have 0. That doesn't make sense. Location 2 profiles. Okay, now we have. Okay, so it looks like it for some reason, it needs to start from 1 here. Okay, so it needs to start from 1 and then 2. Okay, so now this one here, right? So this is and this is the correct format. This is what FlutterFlow expects. It wants latitude first, followed by longitude, longitude, and then longitude. Okay, and here we can see that this is us, and we need to double check that this is us as well. So let's see, 428. Who's 428? If you go into profiles, that's me, 428, and I should be, and I'm here second. And I'm here second. So this is correct. This is absolutely correct. All right. So now what we can do is we can actually get this information in the matches. Okay. So we can go back here and we can go into maps and we can come over here. And here we can just query that view. Let's go ahead and refresh our schema. Okay, we got the schema refreshed. And here we can simply do this match locations view. We can come over here and we can simply get what we need. So it says here convert locations. And here we need to make sure that we're doing it correctly. Okay. So match location view rows. And now we have to do a lot of logic here because first we have to see if we are on the locations, right? Because we're not just getting a list of profiles. Okay, so now we need a filter to make sure that we're actually in the list. We're gonna go over here, item and list, and we're gonna say user IDs, list contains item. This is authenticated user. Okay, that's the user ID. That's first. Now, once we find our matches, we need to get the other IDs. We need to get these rows. Okay, and so what does it want? It wants a list of raw profiles. Okay, so now it's no longer a list of raw profiles. It is now something else. So if we come over here, it's no longer a list of records. It's going to be this match location views. That is what we're dealing, and that is what we're dealing with. So if we come over here, now we can continue. So user ID is equal to first we need to find ourselves, and then what we need to do is we need to get these records, and we need to do the right thing with them, right? So if you take a look at this function here, we have a list of these records. Okay, so now that we filtered ourselves, we're going to be getting those two matches. And so for each record, we need to create. So here we have record location 2, 1. Okay, so now it's a little tricky because now we're going to be getting these two records, and we need just this one. We need to ignore this first one because this first one, actually, no, let me correct myself. We need the first one because here, this one here, right? So this user IDs here, this is me. So we don't care about that, right? We don't care about that. So what we're looking for is this 1 and 2, or 0 and 1 in FlutterFlow. In Supabase is going to be 1 and 2. In FlutterFlow is going to be 0 and 1. Okay. And so what we can do is we can compare it. We can see, which one is which. Okay, so let's go ahead and come back here. And here what we can do is we need to also pass the authenticated user. Okay, so we can't just get the records. We need to know who we're dealing with. So this is going to be auth user ID. Okay, so now we have the auth user ID right here. We can say if forwards I, this is the record, right, that we're dealing with. If it's user IDs, I think it's user underscore IDs, and we can say the first one is equal to auth user ID. So if it's the first one, then we care about the third and the fourth. Right, so it's going to be 3 and 4, right? And which one is the lat? Which one is the long? The first one is the lat, okay? And so it's going to be 3 and 4 because the first one is the authenticated user stuff. Okay, so we're gonna do this. We're gonna come over here. We're gonna get the first two. 0, 0, and 1. In fact, this should be 2 and 3, and that is kind of what we have. And now we also need to pass the auth user ID. Okay, so now we have this, and we still need to fix this. So initial user location, well, the initial user location is going to be, we can get it from the profile page. Okay, so here we can simply get it from the profile page. So I can just have something easy. Do this, profiles, filter, user ID is equal to auth user. This is good practice anyway, do it at the high level. So we can we only need to do it once. Come back here, and what we can do here is it has this function, and what we're gonna do is we are going to, let me see. I'm going to go into profile rows, Supabase rows, and I'm just going to say, so it wants profile rows, but now it wants the profile rows. Okay, so this is a little tricky. Okay, so what we're going to do here, because we need to, because it has that argument, it's looking for that specific table. What we can do here is we can just work with, we can just do how we have it here, just find filter items, user ID, match locations. I don't think that's going to work, right? If you come to match locations, it's not going to work, all right? So what we need to do is we need to do something else. We are going to do, let me see. We're going to say, we're going to filter, we're going to come over here, and we're going to say, wait, why is it match locations? Yeah, match locations, filter. Let me take a look here. User ID, match. Why match locations view? Let me take a look what's happening here. So this is what we're looking for. We're looking for this user IDs, and it's looking at profiles. That's not correct because this is match locations view. This is not correct. Let me go ahead. No further changes. Let's start over. Condition, single condition. Let's go ahead and get, okay. So now wait, item at index. No, wait a second. Filter condition, item at index. And now we can get our user IDs, and we can say list contains item authenticated user, because we want to make sure that it's our matches, not everybody. So once we have this, we have our matches, and now what we can do is we can pass this auth user ID. We're gonna get, we don't really care. We can just get the first row, and here we can get the first row. Okay, let's go ahead and try this out. Let's see if it's displaying the items. Do we have any errors? Yeah, we have an error. Okay, let me take a look what's happening here. What is the issue here? User IDs is not defined. Chords user. Wait a second. No. This is wrong. This should be records. Records user IDs. Okay, let's go ahead and see if that works. Let's see what's happening here. Match locations view. Yeah, we have user IDs. That is correct. This is a list, Supabase row. Did we refresh our schema? Yeah, we refreshed the schema. Yeah, we have this. We have our user IDs. Okay, that works. See what's happening here. Location 2 for match locations view row. Match locations. Yes, this is wrong. Match locations, records, user IDs, records. Yeah, that should be fine. Let's go ahead and save that and compile that. It doesn't seem to like this. Maybe because it's a view and we can't pass this data from a view. Because if I change this into maybe it expands a table name. Let me see. If I change it into profiles, let's see if that's going to work. Let's say I remove all this. No. Remove almost. And is that gonna compile? Let's see if that compiles. Okay, that compiled. It looks like the issue is I can't use a view. So if that does not compile, then we have an issue. We can't use a view as we can use a table, like we can use a table. Oh no, that works. That works, Let's go ahead and now that doesn't work. User IDs, match locations, view row, records. We have user IDs. We have user IDs right here. It doesn't like, and we have match locations. If record user IDs is 0, see, it doesn't like it. But if I use this, let's say profiles here, well, it's not gonna like any of this. That's fine. We can remove that. And I reference profiles. Profiles has location 2. So let's say we reference, so this works. And let's say I do this and I uncomment this and I say something like, I don't know, whatever. What are we looking at? We're looking at location 2. So let's say I say something like double records I location 2 0. Okay, that should double whatever var variable. And let's see if that works. Okay, that works. But if I change it to match locations view and I try to access location view, it's not gonna work. Match locations. Let's say we try to access match locations. Okay, so will that work? Okay, you see, it doesn't let it go. There's something with, I think it's a maybe a FlutterFlow issue that does not allow us to the getter isn't defined for this match location view because it's the same thing. It's like a view, so we should be able to access it. We can't modify it. It's because it's a view, it's read only, but we should be able to access it. And so it looks like if we pass a whole list of records here, it does not work correctly. So the issue that we had here is that we were calling match locations, which is the field here. Okay, but in FlutterFlow, it has its own field, right? So if you do this, so let's say, you want to get the value of these locations for the first record. So you say something like list double equals to records 0. And then when you put your dot, you see match locations. This is the field that we're looking for. Okay, this is what we're looking for. Not match locations. Okay, so keep this in mind. It changes the fields in FlutterFlow. FlutterFlow changes the fields from how they are in Supabase. And so we can come back here. We are passing in the records. Match locations view, we're passing in the user ID, and here we can simply get the fields, right? So we don't need this. We can uncomment this real quick. And here we can just go through the records. So this is no longer user IDs. This is not going to be user IDs because it's going to be called something else. See, if you put it right there, that's what it's called. So if user ID 0 is auth user ID, then we're going to go for the other location. So here you need to put match locations, and that fixes it. Something here. Okay. And that should work, right? So what we're doing is we're going through the records and we are looking for the other matches. We're looking for the other points, right? So here are our matches. And so we're going through each one of these records. So in this case, we have 2 records and we're looking at, is this us? Because if this is us, then we want the other two records because that's the other person. Otherwise, if this is us, then we want the first two records. Okay, that is the logic there. And so it's saying if the first one is us, then give us the last two records. Otherwise, give us the first two records. Okay, and so that's going to create our lat longs here for the matches. Okay, and so let's go ahead and run our app and see if it works as expected. Go ahead and create a new session. Custom function need to be checked. Okay, there should be no issues. Okay, no issues at all. And this should compile properly. All right, so here's the app. Let's go ahead and log in and let's click here and let's take a look. So this should be in New York somewhere. Let's go ahead and find New York. And there it is. That's our matches right there. So as you can see, now it's behaving correctly. Okay, it's able to get the matches and display them because our matches are in New York. Okay, now we need to make sure the initial map center is correctly set. Okay, so remember we're using this profile and we can just use that, right? So we can simply filter the profile by us, come over here, item and list. What do we want to filter by? We want to filter by user ID equal to this authenticated user ID. Okay, so now we have us and we need to get the row. Well, this is going to be just the first row. It's just going to be first. Okay, and what do we want to do? Well, we want to get the location. Okay, so now we have this location. And what do we want to do with the location? Well, we need to convert this location, right? Because when we go to we need to convert it into a lat long. Okay, and so what do we want to do? Well, we can copy it and we can't do a code expression here. We can't also use this function because it expects something else, a different one. So we can just create another function, you know? So let's go ahead and create another function real quick. And we can just say get lat long. And this is going to give us back a lat long. And it's going to take in a array. And this is our point. And this is very simple. Actually, this does not need to be nullable. And all we need to do is say return lat long. And this is going to be 0.1.0. So it's the reverse, right? Because if you go here, you can see that the long is first. And Flutter expects it the other way around. Okay. Now here we have our profile rows. Okay. But this should not be rows, right? I just realized this should just be a row. So we're going to come back here. We're going to say single row because it should only be one row. And we have this filter. It's only going to give us back one record. And so this is going to simplify this right here. Come back here. We have one row and now we can just select this double. Okay, and we can simply send it to that function, right? So we have this custom function here, get lat long, come back over here, profile row, select this, and that's it. And that sends it directly there. Okay, that simplifies a lot. And so now this map will center on the profile's location. All right, click here and there we have it. So now it's centered on my location, and depending on the zoom level and all of that, we may see some of these other people, some of these other matches. So at this point, there are two matches. Let's go ahead and fix a couple of other things. Let's set this to map, and that's pretty much it. All right, that's pretty much it. And so if the matches change, if the matches are deleted, added, we're going to be seeing more of this. Okay. All right. So the next thing that I want to work on is the settings, the user settings, where they can specify what kind of people they're looking for, a radius, stuff like that. Okay. So we started doing this, right, with the logout page. Okay, so we started doing this because this is where the settings are going to be. And so what I'm going to do here is I'm going to see if we can start and find ourselves a different page. So there's the settings page right here. So, and let me see. So I think we can start with something like this, just something simple. So I'm just going to put profile and I'm going to delete this logout, because we don't really need it. So, and this profile is going to have the nav bar, and yeah, this is fine. Okay, so let's go ahead and configure this. So we're going to get this, the user information, profiles, single row, going to filter it by user ID and by authenticated user. And now we can display it. So we can do profile picture, we can do name, we can do email, and email is actually right there. You know, Active is fine. So what I want to do is I want to create some settings here. Okay, let's go ahead and duplicate this, and maybe we can, change it to something else. So maybe, what do we need? We need gender, right? What kind of gender they're looking for, right? We're going to put gender preference. We're going to get them to set their own gender here, right? When they register, and what kind of gender they're looking for. So gender, and this is a row. So we can add maybe a drop down. We can do a drop down, something like this. Let's go ahead and make it not as wide and not that tall, something like this. And I'm gonna say make it a little bit wide. Why don't we don't really need this text. Why don't we do that? And why don't we just kind of stretch it out, right? We can do this. Leave the icon there. I think I like the icon. Let's do some padding, and this is gonna be the gender. Select gender, and let's see, I don't know, 40. Let's see, how does this look? Maybe leave it at 50. I think 50 is better. And let's see. So options, male, and the initial value is going to be their gender right here. Now this gender is actually, I think we're storing it as just the letter. So I'm going to remove that. So we have gender, and then we can duplicate that and say like gender seeking. Okay, and so this could be something like, what are you looking for? So there's initial value. We're not storing, let me see, profiles. We're not storing the gender they're looking for, but gender preferred. But we're gonna do this right here, text, and so I'm gonna enter this F. That looks good. Let's go ahead and refresh our schema. Yes. And come back here, and this is the gender that they are looking for. So I'm gonna say gender preferred, select preferred gender. Next, we need the distance, all right? And the distance is gonna be, let's see if we can make it kind of a slider. I think slider might be cool. There's a slider. Let's go ahead and expand it, and let's give it some value. So the initial value is going to be what we have there: minimum 1 mile, maximum 100 miles. Okay, or 50 miles. I don't know, 100 miles. Let's do that. Step size is okay, and let's go ahead and add the initial value. I'm sorry, let's go ahead and add the field. So this is going to be distance. This is going to be so we can just use this into, because it's going to be a full. It's not going to be a double. It's going to be an integer. Okay, and let's say 10. Let's say 50, and let's say 2. Okay, just so that we have some data. Let's go ahead and refresh this, get the schema, yes, come back here, and now we can have this initial value, default value. I'm just going to put 1, the default value. All right, so we have this. We need to save it. So let's make this column scrollable, and we have logout, but we should also save it. Okay, so save these settings. And, well, there's a couple of ways that we can save it. We can save them in place, meaning that after they update it, it can save automatically. We can do that. Or we can just save all of them. So I think we'll just do it in place. I think that's kind of cool. And let's go ahead and delete this. Let's go ahead and delete this. Just keep it simple. So gender preferred, and we also need the age range. Let's go ahead and duplicate that. And here we can have an age range. Okay, so how do we want to do that? I say just have 2 input fields. Okay, and another input field. Okay, let's go ahead and fix it up. Like this, outline. Okay, all right. And what we can do is we can have a label. So age from age, and let's go ahead, and I think we have some settings. Do we? No, we don't. Oh, so this should be all in preferences. This needs to be in preferences. Okay. So we're gonna move some of these to preferences. And so what we need to do is we need to break it apart, right? Some things come from profiles and some things come from settings. So let's go ahead and consolidate. Let's go back to profiles here, and we're gonna be deleting this field, and we're gonna be deleting this field, distance radius, and that's it. So these are right, having to do with the person, but their preferences are going to be here. So I'm going to put a radius, let's do distance radius. It's a bit more descriptive, and we're just going to do this, and that's it, right? So we have all the preferences. So let's say this is 10. Okay, so now let's go back to our app, and now what do we need to do? Well, we need to pull up all the information, right, from both tables. So this thing gets the profile, and on the column level, we should be able to get the other things, right? So if we come over here and we do a Supabase, we'll be able to get the preferences, right? Preferences, this is going to be single row, filter, user ID equal to auth user, and now we have the preferences. Okay, so here this is gender, but this now is going to come from this other table, not profiles but preference. Slider is going to come also from preference, and this is going to be, so slider is the distance, right? Okay, we need to refresh our schema because we don't have the latest fields. Let's go ahead and refresh it. Come back here and preferences, distance radius. Okay, let's do 1 as the default, and we're missing custom functions. That's okay. So this is from 2. So let's go ahead and put our initial value, preferences age min, and this is age max. So there we have it. Okay, this is our custom functions. Let's go ahead and test this out. The app, make sure it works. Let's go ahead and compile that. That's good. Let's go ahead and run this. Let's go ahead and log in, and let's click here. Mail, looking for if it, well, first we have this correctly. We can delete this, looking for female, and then we have this slider that is set. We can kind of see where it's set to 10. I think it was set to 10. I think it was like right here. Okay, so it's set to 10 and 30 to 40. Okay, so that is what we have. Let's go ahead and implement saving functionality, right? So if we change this, we want to save. So we're going to add an action, update. In fact, no, let me see. Yeah, unselected is the only one. So we can just update row, update, okay, matching rows by ID, authenticated user, and set fields is what field? Gender. And so now we have to give them some names because this is a mess. You see that? I can see this. Let's go ahead and give it some names. Well, this is fine. And then what we can do is we can say update. Right, so we can say snack bar, and if you see this updated, that means that chances are that this was successful. Okay, let me go ahead and fix some of these. This is input gender, this is input gender interest, and this is input radius. Okay, let's go ahead and do the same thing here. I'm going to copy this because it's very similar. I'm going to come back here, paste action. Okay, so it's not letting me. Oh, there it is. Okay, so that works. And we need to update preferences. And the field that we're updating is interest in gender, widget state, gender interest. Okay, and user ID. Okay, that's it. Now here, we need to do the same thing. We open it up. We can even paste this. So we're updating preferences. Field is distance radius and widget state. This is an integer, but here it's double. So we need to convert using a code expression. So it is an integer, and what we need to do is convert it to a double. So this integer is distance radius. Okay, this is what an integer in. And that looks interesting. Wait a second, var1. It looks like it works just without even converting. This expects an integer, right? In the database, it's an integer. In FlutterFlow, it's a float, but it looks like it's converting it automatically, right? Because if you set this as a double, it's not going to work. Now it's not working, but if you set it as an integer, it works. So we don't even need to convert it because this wants a double, this wants an integer, but this is a double. And so just by setting it as an integer, it looks like it's implicitly converting it. Okay, so that is done, updated. Next is this. Why is it? Let's double check what's invalid here. I'm not seeing. Okay, so it looks like it's not liking something. It doesn't give me any errors here. Oh no, it's good. It's good. Everything is good. Okay, let's come over here and do the same thing. So on submit, no, on change, no, not even on change, on focus change. Yeah, so here we need to decide, right? Because this is a text field. It's not like a slider or we can't really do on change because on change, if you're typing something like 20, if you type 2, it's going to update it. But if you type 20, it's also going to update it. So let's do on focus change. We have to make a call here and we're going to update preferences. We're going to do age min and we're going to use widget state. Okay, and I'm going to copy this whole, come back here, age max, paste it. Well, I can paste it here, and now update age max. We just state age max. Okay, so there we have it. There we have it. In place updating. Okay, let's see if that works. Let's also delete this active. I don't really think we need that. And now we have some changes here. Okay, let's see if this works. Go ahead and rebuild the app. All right, come here and let's go ahead and see if this works. All right, so here, if we type something like, let's say I type 35 and I switch, it says updated, so that should update in my preferences, and there it's updated, right? 35, 40. If I update 40 to, let's say, and I come back here, it says updated, and now this is going to be updated as well, 35 to 45. I'll be missing something. Let me double check. Let's put 50. Come back over here. Did it update? It's not updating. Okay, so we need to check what's going on. What is wrong here? Preferences, matching rows, ID, age max, input age max. Okay, that looks good. That looks fine. This is my ID. Come back here. Strange. Okay, so we'll get to that. Let's check the other things. Let's check if the other things are working. So this thing M, and let's say I change it to female. Okay, let's see if that works. That's profiles. That's not preference. Okay, so now that updated. Okay, that works. Let's change it back and let's try the slider. Okay, so let's say I put it right here, and now the slider is what? 50, and that's in preferences. Okay, so I come back to preferences and slider is 50. No, this is me. This is me. Slider is still 0. Okay, so that did not update. Okay, it's still 0. Okay, and I've seen issues with the slider before. I've seen issues. I've seen it not working. So let's double check. So unselected. Let's go ahead and do this. Updated radius just to see what's happening. Let's see this preferences code. Maybe it's the code expression. Maybe the code expression is buggy. Let's do manual. Let's put 50.5. Let's put 75. Okay, let's put a value. Okay, maybe it's the code expression. Let's go ahead and rebuild this. Okay, so our slider is 0 and it should be set between 1 and 100. Why do we have 0? This is 0. Interesting. It just updated to 0. I think there is a bug with that code expression. Okay, let's go ahead and try this again. Come back here and let's change it. So it should be set to 75. Okay, there it is. So it's a bug with the code expression. Okay, we need to fix it. We need to do conversion between from a double to an integer. And so what I propose is we come back over here and we take a look at this. We can use a code expression. This is our argument, right? This is going to be a double. And so now we have this double coming in, which is this widget state. And I'm going to come back here and I'm going to say, I think this is how you do it, if I remember correctly. No, is it R1? Maybe it's like this. Okay, that's good. So that explicitly converts a double that the slider outputs to an integer that Supabase expects. We're going to confirm. Now we have a code expression. Let's see if that works. Let's go ahead and try this out because I think it had issues with the conversion. Okay, come back here and now it's 20. This should be 20 or 21. And if we come over here, it's not updating correctly. Updated distance radius. Okay, it does say preferences. Why is it not updating it? This is an integer. Interesting. All right, let's come over here and let's try our slider. So I'm setting it to, okay, and now it should say updated distance radius. Come back over here and it should be updated. It's not updating it. It's still set to 75. Interesting. Let's go ahead and try reloading this. Okay, so it's still set to 75. Okay, all right. I think there is some kind of an issue. I've heard issues with the slider, and so what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna try to debug it. Let me see. Let's do this. Let's do a snack bar, and I'm gonna display the value of the widget state, the slider, and see if it's gonna be the right value. Okay, so let's go ahead and see if it's actually picking up the right value. All right, so here we are. Let's try this out. So if I move the slider, okay, so now it's displaying it. It's 20 now. Okay, so it should update it. Okay, so it is updating. Now it works. Now it's 20. Okay, so it is correct. I don't know what that was. It is correct. Okay, so we might not even need this because we see all of this here. So I don't even think this is important. Okay, because it's gonna display it every change, every time it changes. So if I go back to, let's say, 90, let's see if it updated here. It's updating right now. It's 90 here. Okay, so I propose that we remove this because it's gonna be displaying all the time. So I say we don't really need this. Okay, just update and As simple as that. That's about it. All right. So now we have our preferences and we can take those into account when we are doing searches, right? When we are trying to find people. 40, yeah, that works. 10, yep, looks good. So now when we are doing our searches, we can take that into account. And when we are doing this API call, we can send all those variables, right? So user ID is set, gender filter, this is the gender that we want. So let's go ahead and pull up our preferences. All right, so we can do it on the column level or we can do it on the home level. In fact, even better right here. Let's go ahead and get our preferences. Okay, so we got the preferences and now we can come over here and when it's time to do this API call, we can just send them along. So gender is going to be preferences, interested in gender. Radius is going to be radius, and also we can send the age range, right? Radius, preferences, distance radius. So that is set, and then later on we can do the age range here as well. All right, so the app is starting to come together really well. And now what I want to do is I want to test out the whole thing. So I want to create some accounts, I want to match people, I want to make sure that we see the matches on the map, everything is being reflected correctly. All right, so let's go ahead and take a look at our database and see what we have here. So we can go into swipes, and right now we have a couple of swipes. Okay, so this person, this is me, swiped here, and each one of them swiped on me. Okay, and so let's go ahead and see what we have in the profiles here. Let's take a quick look. So we have the profiles here. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna delete all these swipes. First, I'm gonna delete the matches, and before I delete the matches, let's take a look on the messages, see if we need to delete something there. Nothing. Okay, so I'm gonna delete the matches so that we start over. I'm gonna go into my swipes. I'm going to delete the swipes here, and we are going to try some things out. Okay, so let's go ahead and run our app and see how it works. All right, here we are. Let's go ahead and log in, and I'll log in as myself, and immediately I see some of the matches. Okay, so if I go over here, I'm logged in as myself, male, looking for females. Here I have my radius, right? So I can make it bigger, and now it is 40, so 40 miles, and all of that is gonna be taken into account. Okay, the only thing that's not taken into account that we need to fix is the age range. So we're not filtering on that, because if you go over here and we take a look at potential profiles, you see we are not passing the minimum and the maximum. So we're gonna fix that. So that is all taken into account as well. But right now, all of this is saved, all of this is good, so I can come over here and I can see my potential matches. Okay, so one thing I want to do real quick is I want to have a kind of a little card that displays some name, age, that kind of thing, some information about them. So I'm going to say yes, and I'm going to say yes. Okay, and so now we don't have any matches. So if they match on me, we're gonna have these matches, and they're gonna see the matches as well. And so let's go ahead and make a couple of these quick changes. First, I want to make this change right here so that we are displaying a little bit of extra information, right? So if we come over here, we have this row, we have this container here, and so what we can do is we can add, so right now we just have a row, we can add a column and put another row just above it. Okay, so what we can do is we can wrap this in a column, and we can add another row, and we can put some information here. Well, we can make this container a little bit bigger, so let's expand it. Okay, and let's go ahead and let's take a look at this. We have this row here, this row here. So this row here needs to be fixed, right? Because as you can see, there's some space there. Okay, and so we need to make sure that it is fixed correctly. Okay, and so there are a couple of ways to do it. One way is that you can make this row like this, and that kind of pushes it down, or you can make this row like this, and that's going to push everything down. You see that? So we need to kind of decide how we want it to look. And so let's go ahead and fill this row first, and then we'll figure out what we're gonna do to have it look good. So here I'm just gonna put some text. Just keep it simple, I guess. Maybe have another text here, and let's go ahead and align it, and maybe have a name here. And so what do we have here? We have the response item, maybe response. Yeah, because we are not displaying it from a database, right? We are getting it via the API call. So let's take a look at this API call, okay? We go into here and let's say execute this. Well, let's go ahead and make this a little bit bigger. Okay, so now we're getting these values, right? Match ID, match gender, profile picture. We also need to get the name, right? We're not getting the name, so we need to modify. So we need the name and the age. That's what we need to do. And so this thing needs to be modified, okay? And so what we can do here is we can have this assistant help us out, okay? So we can ask her a question. Modify this function to include the profile name and profile age. Okay, let's see if this works. Okay, it is generating, and there's the name, there's the age. Okay, let's go ahead and replace this, accept it, and let's see if this works. Okay, success. Okay, so now it will return name here, and age here, and here as well. Extract year from age. Ah, no, this is incorrect. This is incorrect. It's getting the age from current date created at. That's not correct. So the name is correct, the age is not correct. Let's take a look if we have the age in the profiles. We don't have the age. So that's the problem. We need the age. So let's go ahead and create this age. I'm just gonna make it something simple into, because it's gonna be a two-digit number, right? Save that. Let's put some ages. Let's put 30, 25, 35. Okay, let's go back here. Let's go SQL and let's go ahead and modify it. Actually, we can just modify it here. And this is age. Yeah, this is fine. That should work. We don't need this as age because it's already age. Let's see if this works. Okay, that looks good. And we also need to modify it so that it filters it by the age preferred, right? And so if we come over here, let's take a look and we go into preferences, we have this age min, age max. So what we need to do is we need to set them as arguments so that it can work with them, right? So I'm gonna come in here and I'm gonna say small int age min, small int age max, and you can do this using AI as well. And what we're gonna do is we need to modify this here, where, and what I'm gonna do is pH is greater than, pH is less than age max. Okay, let's see if this works. No, this should be, yeah, this, we don't need that there. It's gonna be here. So age min, small int, age max, small int. Okay, let's see if this works. And then we're doing the filtering here, right? Profile age, and I'm just gonna put arg so that we know it's an argument. Let's see if this works. Okay, so now we can come over here and we can actually pass the age. So I want, let's say, from 20 to 40, and we have 5 arguments. Let's double check. We have 5 arguments. Yep, 3, 4, 5. Okay, so now let's come over here and let's see if this works. Okay, what does it say? Get potential. It's not get potential matches. Is it something else? Get potential matches. UUID text, double precision, small in, small in. Let's go ahead and see if this fixes. Debug with Supabase. Let's see if it knows. Doesn't really do anything. Get potential matches. This is right. This is right. This is the radius. This is min and max. Get potential matches. Let's go ahead and ask AI, write me a select statement to work with this function. I'm gonna copy that, come back over here. Yeah, that should work. That's exactly what we're doing. Radius value is 10, 20, 40. Gender value is F, and user ID value so that it doesn't filter me. Let me double check. Get potential matches. Let me double check. This function, we have this function, right? Oh, okay. We have a lot of these functions. Okay, so we need to delete a bunch of them, because we are creating new functions. Let's see if this fixes it. Get profiles with radius. Why is this? Looks like name text. I think this is potential match ID. Let's go ahead and delete this one. Okay, this is deleted, and this is what we have. Okay, let's go ahead and see if it works now. Integer, integer. Unknown, unknown. Do we have to? Why is this unknown? 1 second. Let me go ahead and delete all of them, and let's just create it. Just delete this one as well, and let's recreate it. Double precision, small, and let's go ahead and recreate it. Okay, it's there. It's there. Okay, we need to cast it. I think that's the issue. Let's go ahead and ask AI, rewrite this select so that the parameters passed are cast. Okay. Let's see if this works. Go ahead and remove this. And there we have it. Okay, so we had to cast it because otherwise it doesn't work. Okay, so now we have this one match. If I put, let's say, 20 to 30, there should be no matches. And if I put 20 to 40, there is a match, one match. Okay, and that is because well, that is what we have. 10, if I expand it, it's still okay. All right, so that is what we have here. So this works, which means that we'll be able to execute it via an API. And so if we go back here, in fact, if we go back here and we go to the API docs, come here, we do bash, display the keys. Now there's more arguments, right? So you can copy. Well, we don't need to copy it. Age min arg, age max arg, and that's it. So we can modify real quick. Let's go ahead and change the definition. Age min 20, age max arg. Save this. We can just do it like this. Integer, come here and put that in there. Min, there we go. Okay. All right. So now we can try this from here, from the API call, and let's say 20. That should work. Okay. So the filtering works. But if I put 20 to 30, it's going to be empty. So the filtering works. This is good. And so this makes it even more powerful. Okay. And so let's go ahead and get this working correctly, right? So we have the name. Well, we need to return all the information, right? Are we returning it? That's the thing. The filtering works, but we need to make sure we are giving it back. Let's go ahead and make sure the filter passes. And so, yeah, we have Michelle. And we have the age. Okay, good. Yeah. So it is right here. Age. Yeah. So name and age. So if we come over here, this is going to be the name, response item, JSON path, and this is going to be the age. Let's do combine. And I'm going to say years old. All right. So this is going to say years old. And let's go ahead and rebuild our app. Now there's no users because we tried matching. So if you go ahead and delete our swipes. Okay. So this is something with the filter. Okay, and we take a look at what's going on. So we also need to pass the age, minimum and maximum. Okay, and so the minimum is preferences, right? What is the preferences, right? Age min and age max. Okay, so now our preferences. What is our preferences? Well, if we come over here, 35 to 40, so that may not match. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna put that updated, and so now that should hopefully match somebody. Okay, let's go ahead and rebuild this, and there we are. So Rebecca, 30 years old. There it is. Okay, so I say yes. Michelle, 35 years old. Okay, that is there. We just need to fix this. I'm going to match on both of them. And then I'm just going to fix this real quick. Okay, so let's take a look what's happening here. We have a container with a column. And then we have two rows. Okay, so what we can do, so this is expanded all the way, and this container has a height of 120. So if we increase it to if we increase it a little bit to 150, that's going to look a little bit better. Okay, because now, yeah, we can kind of size them equally. Okay, so now they're equally sized. And so now if you take a look, this container is 150. So that means each row height of 75. Okay, and that means that this height here is going to be equal, right? So that means the icon, you see the icon button size is 70, and that's enough because it's 75, right? So you need a little bit of padding, and so that looks pretty clean to me. Okay, that looks fairly clean. All right, and you can even have a little bit of a border around this container. Let's do a border color. I don't know, maybe something like this. Okay, so something like this might work. Okay, all right, so that is what we have, and it looks like it works. Now if I go ahead and log in as Rebecca, we're gonna see me here, right? James is here, and I can do this, and now if we come over here, we see James there. Okay, and so now we can chat with James. We can do all kinds of interesting things, right? We have this chat, and James is gonna see it as well, and we can delete it as well. Okay, and we can go to our map and we can take a look at where James is. So James is right here, only one match. And if we go to Rebecca's preferences, this is what we see here. Okay, this is exactly what we see. And all of this is taking into account, right? So we can modify this and that will get updated. And if we go back here to our preferences, you can see that this is Rebecca, interested in male, 30 to 40. Right? And the distance is 50, which is exactly what we have. So if we go all the way up, that will be 100. Now you see it as being set to 100. All right, so this looks like it works pretty well, at least with the feature set that we have right now. And obviously you can take this further. You can add more features, you can add more functionality, you can integrate it into a bigger app. It's really up to you, it's really up to you as to what you want to do with this app. Now, I really hope you enjoyed this tutorial and hopefully you've picked up a new tip or a new technique that you can use in the apps that you're building right now or in the future apps that you're planning to build. Now, as I mentioned earlier in the video, if you're interested in getting access to this app so that you can kind of learn more about it when you see it in front of you on your screen, or maybe you want to implement some of the techniques in your apps, or maybe you want to enhance this app without needing to start from zero, without needing to reinvent the wheel, then I'm happy to say that you'll be able to get access to this app, and you'll be able to also clone it as a member of our amazing Patreon community. And when you join our amazing Patreon community, you're not only going to be getting access to this app right here, you're going to get access to all my apps that I did in the past, as well as all my future apps. They're all there. They're all waiting for you guys to view and or clone them and learn from them, and also use them as starter templates for your future apps. And not only will you get access to all these apps as a member of our Patreon community, but you also get access to extra content, such as our Q&As, our deep dives, and other content that I put out for our Patreon members. And of course, when you join our amazing Patreon community, you'll be supporting this channel and supporting my work. So if you're getting any amount of value from my tutorials, from my overviews, from my apps that I'm putting out on the public YouTube channel, you're going to get even more value inside of our Patreon community. So if this sounds like something that may interest you, then definitely check out our amazing Patreon community via the first link in the description below the video.